All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Gaytriarchy for the 13th of July of 2019. I am Prince of Queens, and look at how many of us there are. It's like this explosion overlord of a cast of characters, and there's two bisexual British guys, one of which has been on Gaytriarchy before a few times. That would be Philip Tanzer, aka Logan Mcree. He's the one that's moving. He has the animated thumbnail. It's kind of cool. It goes on a really long loop. And
okay.
Then we also have Ashley Messenger, who you might know from Spacepan's channel. And here he is over here. And if you can hear it in my voice, I kind of just woke up. So I'm going to give it over to Spacepan, and that he's going to sort of be in charge for the moment while I go like have my coffee and crap. Okay. But I'll be able to hear everything from the other room.
All right, well, it's nice to have everyone here. Does everyone want to say hi real quick? Say hi, shill, whatever.
Hi everybody.
Yeah, I was just going to comment, the way that Prince titled this stream makes it seem like a porn. It's like, we're two bisexual Brits.
How did you title it?
Ooh, I think we have some crazy static. Let's see what's going on. Yeah, it's coming for you, actually. I don't know what's happening with your mic. We normally don't have these kind of problems. I don't know what's happening.
I actually really like the sound effect. It's very 90s industrial rock.
Yeah, there we go. It's like icebreaker in here.
What?
Yeah, dude, you're just straight up stormtrooper right now. You might have to try and enter and exit again, or I don't know if you changed like the gain or something on your microphone. I'm not sure. Let's see. Well, we can talk about the news. I guess the big happenings lately have been the Epstein blow up, which has been very interesting. And what else?
Well, I just looked up the Vic Mignogna thing. Why don't you?
Oh, do you guys want to talk about that?
Wait, hold on, real quick. I just want to say briefly before we get into subjects why Philip wanted to be here, and the reason that he wanted to be here is because he's putting together this MRA database type index website, and so we can get back to that later. But could you maybe briefly explain it, so that people know that we're going to be getting to that?
Oh, yeah, when I said shill, that's what I meant. That was your opportunity to say if you're working on some exciting project, shill it. Okay, so let's hear about this MRA database thing. This sounds exciting.
Okay, so it's well, I don't know if database is the right word for it. It's going to be quite a big project, and it's quite complicated for me because I don't know shit about websites. But I noticed a lack of something in the men's rights movement, and that is actually a website where people can gather information and statistics and stuff like that. I noticed that every time that I get attacked by feminists, I have to search for certain data and I have to look up the same statistics again and again and again. And sometimes it's quite tiring to try to find statistics for certain areas, for certain countries and stuff like that, or trying to find support groups in certain areas. So my idea was to create a website, and the website is going to be called forman.international. And it's going to be a website that it's going to have 3 or 4 focuses. One focus will be the manosphere itself. So there will be an explanation about what are the different parts of the manosphere, what's the rights movement, what is MGTOW, the pickup artists. Also, a small focus on different aspects of feminism, and so just to clarify the different groups and the different interests that these groups stand for. So there will be kind of a graph with these different aspects of these movements, and when you click on the graph, it will give you information about each movement. Very short information, so it won't be like Wikipedia or something, just a short summary what the movement is about, and then there will also be important people from each movement, and all these different people and groups within these movements will have like a profile, and you click on the profiles, and there, let's say you click on the profile of Paul Elam, you will get what Paul Elam is has worked on, what books he has written, what websites he's working on, where even where certain people stand politically a little bit, what people or groups he's associated with, and so on. So that's one part of the website. Another part of the website is going to be men's issues. So that has a very strong men's rights focus. So it will have first a list of topics like, for example, health, education, fatherhood, work, finances, sexuality, media, society, manhood, identity, then LGBTQ, crime, violence, and so on. And then when you click on each one of these main issues, you will get to a lot of detailed issues. Like, for example, when you click on health, you're going to have physical health and mental health. And under mental health, you're going to have depression, suicide, and so on, and so forth. And when you click on these, you're going to have data, facts, and you're going to have like as much detail and information as possible. And people can submit information that they found to our database. So you can fill out a form and just send your information to the website, and it's going to end up on the website. That's how we're going to try to collect as much information as possible. And then another big section of the website will be hopefully a huge list of male groups. So, well, not just male groups, but support groups, international, like ordered by country, support groups for suicide, homelessness, the Boy Scouts, and all the groups that can help people. And if we can, I would like to come up with a system where we can rate these groups, because there are certain man support groups that are actually feminist founded, and I would still include them, but there should be some rating system where we can kind of warn people what the focus of certain groups are. That is the website I'm working on.
Yeah, well, it sounds like quite the project. And I like the idea because it's cool to have kind of a one-stop shop, right, for all things Manosphere. There's a number of websites that kind of have tried to fill that niche, but I think what often happens in the Manosphere is there's so many differences, right, that like the MGTOWs want to be separate from everyone, right? But they're sometimes they'll overlap with men's rights, but of course, the PUAs and people who are more masculinist, they're obviously going to like have their own websites. So I can totally imagine how people who jump into this stuff, they hit like a very masculinist website, and then they get this impression that isn't really the impression you'd get from an MRA or from someone MGTOW or PUA. So I kind of like the idea that it's like, you go into it, it's Manosphere, and it's not like these BS like MSM articles where they're saying, oh, this is the Manosphere and they're all Nazis. It's just like it'd be kind of refreshing to have something that kind of does justice to all the different sections of it.
True, but I have to say, so I'm gonna try to be neutral towards, like, for example, I read some great stuff about, I don't remember where I read it, but I read something really great about incels. And up to that point, I had quite a negative opinion. Well, you know how people talk about incels. And on one hand, I thought, well, these are poor guys. But on the other hand, I did hear a lot of, like, let's use the bad M word, a lot of misogynistic stuff from so-called incels. But then I heard uh, incels actually talking about themselves, and I'm like, wow, this is actually quite powerful and quite beautiful how some of the incels talked about themselves. And so I want to keep that neutral, and I want to be I want to try not to be too judgmental, even on feminists and stuff like that. I'm gonna try to be as honest as possible, but not be completely judgmental. But the main focus of the website will definitely be men's rights, because and I failed to mention that, and that's another big part of the website. I noticed that I read so many articles on Twitter and on Facebook and so on of issues being tackled in certain countries by small men's rights groups, and they're all fighting their small fights, and they manage to gain a little bit, but then they're being pushed back immediately, and they lack support from a bigger movement. And it would be great if we could share what we're working on. So let's say in Iceland they were working on a bill, and I don't even think that was done by any members of the men's rights movement, but they were working on a law that tried to make circumcision illegal, as far as I know. Now, there are groups in America that are obviously working on making that illegal as well. The groups from America should take a look at the laws that were trying to be implemented in Iceland and see, oh, how is that phrased? Maybe we could use some of that. And that's what I want to work on, like bringing as much information from different parts of the world together so that we can work on these issues together. Let's say an Australian MRA group that focuses on domestic violence creates posters for male victims of domestic violence. Why should British MRAs not use the same poster and just change the phone number or something like that? It would make it much, much easier for us to bring the message out if we would share posters and stuff like that on that website, and you can just download the file, change it a little bit, and use it for your own purpose.
Yeah,
So,
I was
sorry.
going to say add the British flag.
Yeah, exactly.
I kind of like that you have like the kind of infographic style memes, and then you just have different variants to dress it up depending on your target audience.
Yeah.
Well, I'd be happy to, like, if you're looking for certain links, I can definitely kind of help. So you're not like reinventing the wheel, you know?
No, absolutely not.
Going out there, like I'm going to actually toss one into the chat right now, which is a Voice for Men put together like a men's rights wiki.
I know. I saw that.
Oh, okay, good. Yeah, so you're in the know. You've been snooping around. You've been seeing that.
Yeah.
Another one I like too is the it's on the Reddit, one of the subreddits for men's rights. They have the Bible of men's issues, which it was put together a few years back. So some of the links are a little bit dated or broken, but the way that they had kind of explicated and listed out pretty exhaustively a whole number, of different men's rights issues with different kind of standard arguments and links is pretty thorough. Like that's something that I kind of use.
Could you send that to me on Twitter? That would be great.
Yeah. You'll have to follow me on Twitter so I guess I can DM you. I don't know if let me see. Let me double check. Oh, I can check that right now. But yeah, I think it's a great project. Oh, the other thing too is I like the idea of kind of integrating like local men's groups, because this is the thing is that I had been following the Manosphere for years, and it wasn't until like a few years into it that I thought, hey, I'm gonna see if is there any actual local men's group to where I live? And I Googled it and I was like, wow, like we have a Twin Cities men's center. Like I didn't even think to check that. So that was pretty embarrassing. It was pretty humbling to realize I've been complaining about these issues and didn't really set foot and to get involved until like so many years later.
I think what we are really shit at is to actually work together. Like the feminists, they are really good at just kind of like working together. And I mean, obviously they have a lot of money to back them up. But a problem with men is like we all do our own little thing, and we're all like lone wolves and lone warriors. But that's not how we're gonna win the war. We really have to work together and share information and share resources to actually get some movement going.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's the thing too is a lot of people, you know, you look at just the severity and number of all these men's rights issues. People are kind of at a loss for like, how do you find a way to get involved, and that can be really powerful. And I've seen a lot of people say that too. You know, there are groups, especially like church groups, can be actually a pretty good outlet for some people to find ways to help others.
Hey, I had to come in from the deck to say, we are not winning a war. We are making progress. And
we're winning a war in Minecraft.
We're trying to make sure that men have, you know, 10% of the rights that we should have. For that's a step. Okay.
To be honest, I do think that we there is a possibility of winning this war. Unfortunately, I think that would go hand in hand with the temporary destruction of society. And I don't think that the destruction of society would be caused by man or the men's rights movement. I think that after the left side descended us into chaos, the male forces would thrive again. But I would prefer men's rights to thrive without chaos winning first.
I say push the button. Push the button. Let's just see what happens.
Well, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. So I don't worry about myself, but I don't want everybody else to burn.
Yeah, we'll cross some fingers. Ashley, do you want to see if your audio is working? I know you kind of popped in and out a couple of times.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, now it's good. For me, it is.
Thank Christ. Can anybody else hear me?
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely. You sound great.
Okay.
That sounded like 3 yeses. All right.
Sorry, yeah.
So I've got a question to you guys, especially because we can talk about kind of like LGBTQ XYZ issues here. I want GBTQ issues to be part of the website I'm working on, but I find that quite difficult because I would assume that there are a lot of different views from within the men's rights movement and even from within us. I would say that I started to be quite homophobic in like since 20 years or so. So there are a couple of gay rights that I'm actually not in favor of anymore. But I wouldn't want these views to be dominant on this website. But on the other hand, I'm not sure if they should be on that at all or not. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I guess I have some thoughts on it. There's kind of two sides to it. Like the two parts of the Manosphere that I'm not really so much on board with is there's kind of this it's sort of like you get with these kind of cookie cut like black conservatives where they make their blackness like the center thing, where they're like, well, I'm gonna wear my Trump pin and be black, and people are yelling at me and blah blah blah, and it's like, okay, we get it, we get the point, right? And there's a little bit of that within like gay MRAs where it's like, well, I'm gay and I can talk about men's issues, and it's kind of like just this very identitarian approach to things where people put their identity forth as like this shield, when I prefer people to kind of focus on the issues and solution to the issues, and that we kind of, not make the identity the main focus of it. But then on the other side of it, you have people who are more the traditionalist camp that really promote a lot of like complementarianism and things like that, which like I'm not really sold on. And yeah, it's kind of like a lot of people, when they see men's issues, they don't really have a problem with men being discriminated against in certain ways, as long as we can, like, they actually want to go back, so to speak. People talk about restoring the patriarchy, but they mean a lot of different things by that. But for some people, they're actually okay with this traditionalist exchange, which I imagine most gay men really aren't. That's kind of part of being gay, is that you've kind of rejected the traditionalist paradigm. It's not really going to fit, your life very well. And I think most people would kind of prefer the more live and let live, very libertarian approach to things. But then we have this question of how realistic that is. So I can kind of see on both ends of it, where there's this like very ultra accepting spectrum of it, where people are kind of engaging in reverse SJWism, and then the other end of the spectrum where it is kind of this like what a feminist would call reactionary conservatism. So I think there's a little bit of both of that, because the manosphere is kind of necessarily a big tent, just in the fact that it's only single common denominator is that it's men's issues, which means anybody's going to show up and say whatever they want to say. You know what I mean?
I think that where I would say where a problem shows up, because like I think almost no member of the men's rights movement has any issues with what gay men do or don't do. The only issue that I see is potentially when it comes to same-sex adoption. Because there are people, like for example myself, who think that the best version, or the best version of parenting is a man and a woman. For example, I would not have wanted to grow up with two mothers. I think I could have dealt with two fathers, because for me, masculine energy is more important. But I think the ideal is a father and a mother. And obviously we have a lot of men's rights activists that highlight the importance of a father for especially boys. But that means potentially criticizing same-sex couples raising children. And that I see potential for different opinions and opposing opinions on the website when it comes to that.
Yeah, I guess one issue too is right now the big epidemic in modern Western societies is single motherhood, and not single parenthood, right? Like single fathers actually tend to do fairly well, especially compared to single mothers. And I think that if you're looking at gays, whether they're male gay or female gay, having two parents tends to trump being just a single mother. So I would also suggest that that perhaps there's a stronger argument against lesbian adoption than gay male adoption when you're talking about two parents. But ideally, I think it's easier to have a standard where it's like, how about minimum two parents? But then I'm also kind of flirting with the standard of how about minimum at least one father.
Well, yeah, I would say it is a very complicated question, because I definitely see both sides of this. Like I've spent so long in my life thinking that I would never want kids, like I wouldn't, and then now I'm like sort of starting to reconsider, and I'm like, oh, but that's so weird. Like I always didn't want that. I don't know if that is the ideal situation, but then you have to start thinking about issues like, well, I mean, you know, there's a lot of kids that don't really have good families at all. There is a lot of kids in the foster system. There is, you know, and so if there's this disproportionate amount of kids in in the foster care system, and there are good, you know, same I guess, you know, gay fathers who are interested, it's like, would you deny the kid to have a home? And that becomes really, really complicated. And so, but yeah, I mean, I do think that the ideal situation would be a man and a woman theoretically. But it's like, I mean, you can get terrible men, woman parents, you know, everybody knows that. So,
Just to clarify that, so I would say I'm very critical of same-sex parents, but I'm not completely against it. I would always argue that, for example, if two women or a single mother or a single parent, if one gender is missing at home, I think that the parent should think about how this void can be filled, either to any kind of role model of the missing sex, be it grandfather or teachers or whatever. I think that single sex parenting, they have to think about how to fill the void.
yeah, it is a complicated question, and I, I guess that what I would say, just on the more general question of like what to include on the website, like what you asked towards the beginning, I think that you should probably try to avoid editorializing it and just make sure to include all views, and say that this you know, the purpose of this index isn't to draw a conclusion, but to show the different schools of thought. And that would be what I would probably say.
Yeah, I would not want a gay man who comes to the website to feel pushed away because I want the website to be for all men.
Yeah, and that's
I will.
Philip, Philip, I totally understand where you're coming from, and I personally have thought about what I would want to do in that situation. And like, I, in my own integrity, have said to myself that if, for example, I were to have a surrogate mother because I wanted to have a child, I would absolutely insist that that surrogate mother is present in that child's life. Whether or not she lives in the same house, I would insist that they have a relationship. And in the case, you know, and in any situation, I would, in other situations, I've imagined having kind of co-parenting as a thing, where you can have two men and two women who also live close to each other or have an agreement in how they support each other in raising children. So you're actually thinking outside of just a two-person relationship, but it could be, you know, this idea of like being raised by a village, where then there's not only a balance in sexes, but you also have a balance in age representation.
Oh, I absolutely agree. I think that's very important. Yeah.
One thing I do want to note though is I think that finding that surrogate like female role model is probably it's a lot easier than to find the male one, because you know women tend to have a lot of jobs that are kind of similar to caregiving. You know, there are a lot of teachers, there are a lot of nurses, a lot of things like that. You know, they work at daycares, they do stuff like that, where like it's almost inconceivable that somebody would grow up without having enough of a female interaction. Whereas, you know, it's kind of a common thing people point out within the manosphere that, you know, very often children can go through their entire childhood without really being exposed to any male role model. It might not be until like college when more of the professors are male, you know, if they're raised by a single mom.
Yep.
So I think definitely there's a lesbian challenge there. Not to say it's an inherent one. It's like that's just kind of how things have shaken out socially.
That's more or less what happened to me as well. I mean, I did have a dad until, well, a few years ago. But yeah, all of my teachers were female, more or less, with a couple of exceptions. I think in year 4, which corresponds to maybe the age of like 7 or 8, I did have one male teacher. He was really cool. Yeah.
And the interesting thing is I've noticed in teaching ESL, it seems like the overwhelming majority of teachers that teach ESL and go abroad seems to be very skewed male. And now I'm just starting to wonder if I wonder if there's a bit of this problem in other countries where, you know, they have mostly female teachers. So then when they have like an ESL teacher, they're like, oh, great, we get to balance out, you know, the gender is this way too.
What does ESL stand for?
That's English as a second language. So usually, okay. So you do what I'm doing. So that's how I live in Asia.
All right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure once I get the website up and running, I'm gonna contact you guys to post content on the LGBTQ part of the website, so you can bring your views into it, and you can also like your insight is very appreciated, and I need a lot of people that keep the website in checks and balances to make sure that it's balanced and that all viewpoints are highlighted.
Yeah, and I think it was media content mentioned in the live chat that if you use, let's see, what did they say? It started with a D. I hadn't heard of it, but they mentioned something you can use that will ensure that enable it to have like chats and a forum and things like that. And I think putting that sort of a community aspect of it like directly on the website is a great way to, you know, to have that conversation. What website did you say? It starts with a D. I'm just scanning through chat. I'm not seeing it. I'll let you know if I see it. What if he deleted it? Sorry. Drupal, he said. DRUPAL. Drupal? I've never heard of that. Interesting. I remember me and my friends used to use pro boards. Good old pro boards. Those websites were so crappy, they were awesome. All right. Well, I guess, do we have any other thoughts on, I guess how to the website or?
Oh, I wanted to add something. I read research while I was in school that they did a survey of parents of same sex and different sex, and also and primarily two parent families. And what they concluded in their research was that there was no clear correlation between child like the designation of like a healthy socialized child regarding whether it was a same sex or a different sex. What they found was that the greatest degree of correlation was regarding the relationship between the parents, that the parents that had the strongest relationships had the healthiest children.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me. And it also doesn't surprise me that children that grew up in same-sex relationships do pretty well, because especially when we talk about adoption, I think parents that adopt, they make a very, very clear decision, and they fought for the right to have a child, where a lot of straight couples, they just accidentally end up with a child and never plan to have one, and that often ends in disaster, I would think.
I have heard that there's a problem with some of the research on it, which is that their samples weren't necessarily unbiased, because they'd have like a referral style program. So what ended up happening is you'd have kind of like more like middle to upper class gay couples that would then get all their middle to upper class, gay couple friends to go and do these surveys also. So then it kind of slanted the pool. But I have heard that it seems like if you compare the outcomes for gay parents to like the general population, they might be a little bit worse, but that if you compare it to adopted children, then it tends to be pretty much okay.
I wonder what happened. Like I recently noticed that there is an incredible increase in lesbians, especially younger lesbians between, I would say, 16 and 30. And so I see a lot of lesbian couples, quite a few of them with children. And I saw some absolutely lovely lesbian couples, but I also saw some that and I can only talk about the visual appearance, and I'm really not one to complain because I'm covered in tattoos, but they look kind of rough. And the statistics say that lesbian couples have the highest amount of domestic violence. And if we in 10, 20 years time, we might get some data that there are issues. But yeah, I don't know about that.
Well, and this is another thing too, is that just trying to focus on spreading awareness about things like not hitting your kids, no spanking. I know some people, whenever I mention that, usually most people seem to get that it's not a good idea, but we do sometimes meet a little resistance here and there. But I think that's one issue that kind of gets lost in a lot of the overall noise that people don't really think about.
Well, in regards to domestic violence, I think that I would not be surprised to hear that kind of data from just personal experience. I have, known a number of lesbian couples who have been very open about their disagreements and often violently so with each other. So that doesn't surprise me necessarily. I also just know that, and I'm not going to say that that doesn't happen between men either. I would say it happens less between men because men are more serious about the way that they fight than
Agreed.
women, it seems.
It's for some reason it seems like lesbians, and obviously this is a horrible generalization, and I don't mean to generalize that on each lesbian, but it seems like a lot of lesbians, they seem to overcompensate their, I don't know, their lack of manliness. So they seem to have a very toxic masculinity, and I'm sorry for using that term, but I see a lot of toxic masculinity in a certain kind of lesbians, and that comes with violence and with a much more vicious violence that I usually see amongst men, especially gay. I usually never see that amongst gay men, and very rarely amongst straight men.
That's a really interesting point that you put forward about how, in psychology, you would say that often the person that makes the accusation is usually distracting from their own qualities that are in alignment with the accusation. So for for people who are very hateful in their speech and make accusations about toxic masculinity, I would not be surprising to think that they bring that kind of level of hate speech into their own relationships, or really that they're speaking to themselves that way. And that's where it originates, is like is the self criticism, the self harshness that might have happened because of the way that a caretaker had spoken to them when they were young.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Speaking of toxic masculinity in women, I guess you guys have followed a little bit the female football or soccer World Cup, and I'm not saying that you watched it. I didn't watch it, but I saw a little bit of the behavior of Megan Rapinoe and some of the other American players. And I mean, it's great that they won, and congratulations and all. But some of the behavior I saw displayed, if you would see that displayed by a male player, he would be called an absolutely horrible person and a misogynist, well, like a douchebag and toxic masculine person. What do you guys think about that?
You know, I actually didn't hear much about her in particular. Mostly everything I've seen about it has just been, you know, people complaining about the pay and everything. And I'm so burnt out of that topic that I just roll my eyes. But this actually sounds kind of interesting. Let me see. Was there anything? So
would you mind updating us on what she did exactly?
So, so her behavior, there are quite a few videos where you see the team celebrating and arriving from their private jet and arriving back in America and stuff like that. And their demeanor is so macho and very arrogant, and they were like holding the trophies and they're like, oh, we fucking deserve that. And there was a lot of swearing, and they were handed over in New York. They were handed over the key to the city, and then one of the players said, lock your children, lock your wives. We've got the key to the city, so you better watch out, bitches. Stuff like that. And the whole demeanor, like they were constantly wearing sunglasses and just acting like the coolest kids in school, and it was quite annoying. That being said, I did listen to a speech that what was her name, Megan Rapinoe gave, and when she talked, there were a couple of things that she said that I thought were really, really well put forward and well said, when she was thanking the whole team, and when she was thanking the massage therapist and stuff like that. Oh, that was really, really nice. But the overall demeanor, if that was being like done by a male player, people would rightfully so call them douchebag and assholes and stuff like that. It's just the way she presented herself and some other team members.
I have noticed that people are very annoyed with them in general. Like people, right-wing people, you know, are just like, oh my God. But I do want to say about the thing where she said, you were saying like lock your kids away or whatever. I think that she was repeating a meme that came out on this. It was from a news clip.
Oh, you mean hide your kids, hide your wife?
Yeah.
Hide your kids, hide your wife.
Because they rape everybody up in here.
Yeah. Have you seen that, Philip?
No, I have not.
Okay. It was actually really funny. You got to look up "hide your kids, hide your wife." It was somewhere in the projects. This was an actual news story. Some guy tried to break into a house in the projects, and some woman, you know, she was probably like in her late 20s, was sleeping in a bed with her daughter, and he tried to go in there and, like, I guess rape her. Like, he was trying to pull her clothes off, and then her brother came in from the other room and they fought him off like he was this and her brother was this really queenie black guy. And so then the police came and they interviewed him, and the newscasters are all like, tensions were very high. And then they asked the brother, so what happened here? And he's like, well, obviously, we got a rapist in Lincoln Park. He's climbing in your windows. He's snatching your people up. So hide your kids, hide your wife, hide your husband, because he's up and in here raping everyone here. And he's like, you
so
don't
basically
need,
it's about rape.
Yeah, he's like, you don't need to run and confess. We're looking for you. Are we gonna find you so you can run and tell that, homeboy?
Hey, but the best part about it,
I have to say, I have to say, my issue is not with what they said. My issue is with the double standard, because male player would have said, hide your kids, hide your wives. they would have said, like, Me Too people would have gone absolutely bonkers, and people would have said, oh, that's toxic masculinity. That's what I have a real issue with. Double standard.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
I also
Like, watch some of the videos and make up your own mind. I don't have as I said, like, some of the stuff she said I thought was absolutely fine, but when I see videos of how they behave, I'm like, yeah, I would really not like to spend any time with them, because otherwise I would feel like punching them in the face.
And I just want to add that I would not be surprised, it's purely speculative, but I would not be surprised if there are trans players on the team. And this might be, this is very likely, and it's happens all the time. And that kind of attitude, where does that come from exactly? Who knows?
Well, I think
Really?
it's all kind of a display in a way, because I got into this on another stream. Like, it's sometimes said, I think a significant percentage of the women who work in those professions, like in team sports and stuff, are lesbians, and that isn't really the most important thing. It's like, it's often said of masculine presenting women who are interested in I don't know, feminism or feminist ideas, that they're attracted to those ideas because they have masculine personalities. But I have to wonder, given what you actually see of their behavior behind the scenes, I don't think they actually do. I think it's mostly just their manner of presenting themselves, like overcompensating, like you said. It's more of a caricature of masculine behavior, and it's then compounded by the fact that we don't extend the same social liability to women that we do to men, especially not in the modern environment. So you end up with these situations where they overcompensate to the degree of acting like not even men, really, more like chimpanzees, such as happened in this case.
Or maybe like
Wait, hold on, you guys. Just Mile Kinslow donated $5 to me with Streamlabs, and I'm gonna put in the how to donate with me in the side chat. If you want to donate, that would be really awesome. And also, if you have not yet hit that like button so that we are promoted more in the algorithm, that would be awesome. And I'm going to be away from the computer a little bit, but listening still.
Yeah, I do think that, like, a lot of these kind of feminist women, they have an idea of what the standards for men are, and then it's almost as though you'd think that they'd want to go into this and then say, oh, well, since men are a bunch of pigs and men are a bunch of monkeys who act this way and are so rude, like, we're going to show them how a lady acts. We're going to show them how someone, really acts with dignity. But instead, they just kind of use it as like, oh, well, the men are doing it this way, so we get to do it this way too. And they have a totally perverted idea of what the male standard is.
And men don't even get to do it that way, is the thing. Yeah.
Oh, I forgot to read what Miles Kinslow said. He said, hey guys, had a crazy thought. What if Jussie Smollett's scandal was turned into a gay porn parody? Any name suggestions? Have a great day. Wait, how would that
on Matt Christensen's stream?
how would that even work? Like, what is the I remember Chadwick made the joke. He was like, I'd pay those guys to beat me up.
So they were going through like funny potential like titles for what it would be. My favorite was Bleach My Brown Hole. or three guys on rope is another good one. Anyway. Wow. Oh, nice. And then a lot of ones about Subway sandwiches. Those are always good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to think of something original. I wonder how that would play out. Maybe we'll keep that on the back burner and then remind us to get back to it.
I was just wondering, when you guys were talking about the display of like pseudo masculine traits displayed by these football players, I was thinking maybe they are the female version of drag queens, because I mean drag queens are men like actually overcompensating female traits and like being a farce of a female, of a woman, maybe these football players are the same, like women just imposturing men.
You know, that makes them a lot more likable. I think we should just start calling them drag kings, and we'll just white knight for them and say, "Oh, it's just an act. They're just putting on a show. It's all performance art. It's very, it's very highbrow."
That's great.
Do you think they would like that?
Well, I don't care what they like. I mean, they'll appreciate it. I mean, they'll like the attention, right?
Oh, they do. They definitely do. So
yeah,
what's the next topic?
Yeah, I was just noticing that they were doing a recent. I was looking through her Wikipedia, and there's just something that was it was written really in an interesting way. It said in March 2019, Rapinoe, with 27 of her U.S. women's soccer team, has filed a lawsuit against the United States Soccer Federation, accusing it of gender discrimination. This stems from the fight for equal pay, and it's just something about the way that's written, where they add that as a separate sentence. This stems from the fight for equal pay, and it's just like. I like that they link it all that way, because it's just a way of signaling to people who have a frontal lobe that it's all bullshit. And I'm wondering if this is the straw that's going to break the camel's back, because it's so trivially obvious to people. Whereas if you talk about like gender discrimination in the workplace with a boys club and the CEO and everything, there's enough of a convolution there that people can kind of buy the narrative. But with U.S. women's soccer, people are just like, no one watches it, and they know they don't watch it. So it's like the idea that they should have equal pay immediately strikes people as ridiculous. So I'm wondering if this is going to be the hill that this stupid zombie statistic of women being paid less for the same work finally dies forever. But I know that like every 6 months we hope this happens, and it never does. But
someone made a video. Someone made a video where they were saying, I think maybe it was Tim Pool or Matt Christensen or something, made a video that he said that they actually pay. They get paid more, and I don't remember why how it breaks down.
Based on time.
No, they get paid more. So the women receive 13% of the revenue or something like that, and the male players only get 9% of revenue. And apparently, but Tim Pool wasn't 100% sure about that, but he said, as far as he knows, the men actually play more than the women.
Yeah, that's what it is in tennis, I know, because this came up with all the Serena Williams bullshit. Like women play fewer sets that I think are also shorter, and if you calculate it out by time, like they're actually paid more. So
yeah, and women's tennis, women play 3 sets, and men's tennis they play 5 sets.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's not.
Yeah, so that's not even the same game.
Yeah,
that's a different game. I'm gonna start calling it pussy ball.
I just think the fact that everybody gets up in arms because of football players not getting enough money is just ridiculous. I mean, they're so absolutely overprivileged. They're all getting overpaid. Both the men and the women are getting overpaid. The fact that this is what feminists are fighting for just makes it so obvious that they've got nothing to fight for anymore. Where men's rights activists are struggling with making suicide rates and domestic violence known to people, all that feminists are fighting for now is give millionaires more millions.
Yeah. It's like, it's so funny when you say, you tell a feminist that even Joe Rogan was all like, oh yeah, dude, men have all the rights. We got them. And it's like, okay, so let's just start with that thing when you're born and it's standard to chop off a man's part of his wiener. And nobody like that's like actually really not okay, and then you can't even convince people that, and they're like, oh my god, that is such a false equivalence. I mean, most guys I know are glad that they were circumcised. It's like, yeah, because they don't remember it.
Yeah,
they have to rationalize it to themselves. But like,
I think that's also true of women who are circumcised, according to the survey data. Like most women are okay with it. So
yeah, well, but okay,
but nobody ever comments on that.
But the point is that it's like you with men's rights things, they're so glaringly dramatic. Like the point here isn't like I'm not gonna like I don't feel like I should be having to have the conversation and explain why genital mutilation is bad. The point is that I have to even do that. Like I have to even somehow make that clear when women are like, you know, there's this human organism growing inside me because I, you know, slept around a lot and like I just kind of want to kill it. Why? Well, I just kind of do. Like, and if you say that, you know, and then you compare that to male genital mutilation, which isn't a choice, is done to essentially everybody, and they're like, whoa, that is not the same thing. And it's like, yeah, no shit, it's not the same thing. It is dramatically worse what happens to men. And they're like, oh my god, most men I know, like, and it's like, it's see that's what you're like, you're just struggling to get people that have no there's no perceived no actual influence on them to even acknowledge that this might be a problem. Yeah. And that's like sort of the like, it's like, you know, women's rights is like this thing where there's a mountain and you just don't know how high the mountain is, but you know they're almost at the goddamn top. Men's rights, it's like, you know, you're in a trench and people are like, well, I can't even see you down there, so like I'm not going to give you any help because I don't know where you are.
I think the fact that you brought up Joe Rogan, that's a very, very good point. I had to stop watching his broadcast for a while because I was so infuriated when I heard his comments about men's rights, and not because I can't take a joke. It's because I couldn't believe how deeply blue-pilled he is, even though he's a relatively, I mean, he's not a super smart guy, but he's not a dumb guy, and he questions things, but he is not even able to question his own position and questioning that, oh, maybe men do have a problem. He was so delusional, and I was like, fucking hell, if somebody like him, who does talk to a variety of different people and controversial people, if even he can't fathom the possibility that men have issues, it's such an uphill battle. It's horrible.
Well, dude, it's because you just haven't like smoked enough DMT into your eyeballs, man. You're not on the same level. You're not on his plane. But
yeah, he is a bit too drugged out. That is true.
I think that but what really for me best illustrates the difference between men's and women's issues is if you follow Brother K on Facebook. Half of his posts are all about banning circumcision, and the other half are all about free the nipple. Right? And I'm just like, okay.
Just to let you guys know, I'm gonna take you to the bathroom with me and take a pee. Who's into that?
I'm not into that, but I don't know how it's going to work.
Should I leave the sound on or turn it off? I'll turn it off.
Derek, who's Brother K?
Oh, Brother K is an intactivist, probably the most famous intact. He's like the Karen Strawn of intactivism. And he has this group, the Bloodstained Men. You've probably seen pictures of them, the guys that wear all white and they have the big red spot right on their crotch.
Yep.
Yeah. So he started that. He's like the guy of that. He banned me he blocked me on Facebook at one point. Everybody blocks me on Facebook. But then they unblock me eventually.
Yeah, you shouldn't even use Facebook. It's really not good for your mental health.
I know, I'm like a boomer now. It's like boomery to use it, but I do. And now my Facebook is just filled with people who post Doge memes, and I like it. I like it.
It's funny, I have, like, on Facebook, I have no political interaction at all. Every once in a while, I post something relating, I don't know, British politics or like Tommy Robinson or so, and absolutely nobody responds to it. Yeah. So I wage all my political wars on Twitter, and it seems like Facebook just doesn't work politically for me at all.
You didn't wash your hands.
That is very true. I did not.
No, actually, my Facebook, I like only post political things, and then I just friended people who also post political things. So it's fun, but that's how you get banned all the time.
Hey, you guys! I have to ask a question. I just I got a comment under a Benjamin Voice video that I had left a comment under. Did I ever make a video about George Takei at any point? Do you? I mean, you probably
yeah, you did.
When?
I don't remember. There was a point when he was relevant for some reason, and
Was it because of the Me Tooing? Was I defending him?
Maybe. Did he get Me Too'd?
Yeah,
he did, didn't he? That's
I don't.
right.
I don't remember that.
But I think he admitted to it. But I don't remember. It's all very fuzzy.
Yeah. Some turf is like trying to be like, you made a video, George Takei, and you are defending him because he's a part of your demographic. And I'm like, okay, I don't remember that. And I would never defend somebody strictly because they're part of my demographic, but you're also a turf, which means that, you know, you lie even more than a regular feminist.
Yeah,
so,
don't you get accused of being like a self-hating gay all the time? So it's kind of like, which is it? Are you gonna always white knight for the gays, or do you hate the gays?
No, I don't ever get accused of being a self-hating gay.
I don't see anything on your channel with George or Takei in the title.
Yeah,
maybe it was on proto Gaytriarchy or something.
I might have like, it might have been. It's so hard to remember. Like, there might have been a brief little period where I just didn't even know anything about it, and I was like surprised, and I was like, nah, probably not. But like, it's amazing that like, how did like she scoured through my channel to find some little snippet of something that I do not even remember in the slightest, and it wouldn't have, like, if it was even long, like I might have said it in like one sentence and I might have been kind of wrong, but it's like I don't remember doing this at all, so it's obviously wasn't a big point to me, you know.
Oh my god, this is hilarious. On his Wikipedia, Takei is an avid Anglophile. On his personal website, he had this to say: "Those who know me know that I'm an inconvertible Anglophile, or more broadly, a Britannophile, which includes my affection for Scotland and Wales as well. I love things British." I love this. It was just like openly. We should make an alt-right conspiracy with him. Let's see. I don't see anything about this supposed controversy.
As far as I remember, there was actually something with him and his boyfriend or husband. And
yeah, I think it did.
Somebody being drunk or being drugged, but it's
it was some, okay, so there was some guy when he was this was probably like in the 1980s. There was some model that he had made friends with who was a guy, and the guy broke up with his boyfriend and they got drunk together, and the guy passed out on his couch, and he
you're right.
He woke up to George Takei like touching his junk, and he was like, and George Takei is like, I just want to make you happy. And which is like, yeah, okay, that's kind of gross. I mean, at the same time, it's like so many things like that have happened to me. It's not the end of the world, you know. But oh
no, yeah, there were things involving him. He was younger.
Yeah, the guy was younger.
Yeah.
But
no. Takei was younger.
Well, he was significantly older than the other guy, I'm pretty sure. But I don't remember ever talking about him. Let me just see. Is there any other thing that could have been?
I remember there being some controversy about him allegedly having sexual relations of some kind with like a camp counselor, like a summer camp counselor.
Yeah, that's what it was.
When
so the camp counselor was older, and he was like 13 or something.
He was 13 years old, and he said he was, I don't know, I guess, I don't know if he described it as a good thing or if he just said he wasn't damaged by it. That's something that I could well imagine happening. Like, he said he wasn't damaged by it, and then people like had to come in to convince him that he was damaged by it, and yeah.
Well, I don't know.
That was it. I think.
I don't know if I'm opposed to that. Like, trying to convince. I mean, I'm not saying you said that, but like, I do think that if you're really young and like you're a horny boy, you're going to be like, oh, cool, yeah. But like it will actually sort of mess with you unless somebody like really explains to you why there's laws against that, and that's a weird thing. So I do think that's
I agree with you. I mean, when I was younger, I didn't have any contact to olders, but I really wanted to, and so as a young man or as a teenager, I definitely would have tried to have sex with older guys.
Yeah.
But I think it potentially would have messed me up. I think that I'm already a little messed up because of choices I made in my life, and I think when you make these choices very early on, you just don't know what's going to happen to you.
Yeah, I wanted to as well, in the way that like I was, a horny 14-year-old boy or whatever. But I was also chubby until I was 15. And then when I became, I kind of really lost a lot of weight and became very, very thin. So then it was like, I was one of these really self-conscious, like skinny guys. And I was actually pretty cute. So it was like, all of a sudden people thought I was cute and hit on me, and I had no concept of what that would be like at all. And sometimes it was older men, like sometimes, not uncommonly, it was older men. Like it was fairly common, and I would be totally freaked out by it. Like I was just like, oh my God. Which I guess is good, now for me. It's like, I guess I didn't have to deal with the potential consequences of that. But it just doesn't sound like something I would say. Like, I don't think I would be like, oh, come on, I love George Takei. I mean, he's a gay, and I love it, like, because I don't even like him. Like, I sort of do think he's actually really funny sometimes. Like, he's had some funny moments in the past. But like when he did the thing about the basketball player and he talked about licking his chocolate head, that was funny. But like, I feel like I would vaguely remember thinking something, because it's like, I'm like, I don't think that though. So why would I have said that? Like, I might have talked about him, but I doubt I defended him. Okay, sorry, it's just bothering me. But
There's also on Howard Stern, there was a segment where he was like groping a guy. Like, I guess it was all consensual, but the guy was clearly kind of uncomfortable. Just kind of goaded into it. So that was probably the weirder thing. But honestly, if I was gonna slam Takei over anything, it wouldn't be any of the sexual crap. It would be over all of his like, I fucking love science meme that he shares on Facebook. Every time one of those fucking hits my feed, it's always because some person follows George Takei, and I'm just like, I'm blocking you. I'm blocking everyone within like 3 degrees of separation of George Takei. So I can't handle it.
But did you guys hear about Sargon of Akkad being accused of supporting pedophiles because he had a conversation with a guy who said that something happened to him when he was a kid and he was okay with it, and Sargon opposed it. But because he was talking with this guy, the British press wrote something about that Sargon of Akkad was kind of like promoting and in favor of pedophilia. It was pretty fucked up.
Well, yeah, that's Sargon's "it depends on the child" quote that he gets kind of slammed for. And honestly, I think that the guy who was talking to was Justakar. And I think both of them are kind of being taken out of context there. I think they're kind of really making a
absolutely.
One.
Yeah. It was a total hit piece.
That kind of thing does seem to happen all the time, though. Like, you'll be accused of being like a hardline advocate for something just because you were talking to someone who was espousing a certain view. It's really annoying, and it creates this atmosphere where you just don't want to people who are closer to the mainstream, I guess, like Sargon, it creates a situation where they have an incentive not to talk to anyone who's a little bit weird, which is sort of the opposite of what you would want,
Oh, he would be pedophile adjacent, or I guess in this case, pedophile victim adjacent, which makes him as good as a pedophile because he was talking to someone who was a victim, which means that Sargon is the new victimizer.
Yeah.
Yeah, pedophilia is like glitter. Once you see it, it's on you.
I was when when one of you guys said that it makes it much harder to actually talk to somebody because there are always these smear pieces. I was approached by the BBC, or a reporter of the BBC, a couple of days ago, and he wants to interview me because I'm.
Don't talk to them. Don't talk to them.
I wouldn't trust them.
See,
If you do, record everything on your end.
oh, I already, like, last time I was interviewed by somebody else for Vice magazine, I did it. It didn't really help me, unfortunately. I mean, I was able to make my case and my point, but obviously nobody was interested because the Vice readers only read Vice, but not my rebuttal. But I don't know. I don't want to be afraid of interviews. I prefer to give people a fair shot. I hate prejudice, and I don't want to judge this reporter just because I had bad experiences and just because, for the most part, the BBC sucks. Yeah, but it's a hard decision. I mean, I said that I would talk to him, and I will talk to him, but I already know that it might backfire.
Well, the hell of it is that even if the individual interviewer is okay, which I would imagine is quite common, these people on the ground who are, basically just normal people who work in these organizations, but they're ultimately not the ones calling the shots. It'll be some higher up who decides how everything's going to come out. And it's usually pretty bad from what I've seen.
They want to do a 10-minute thing for younger people about what masculinity means nowadays, and if masculinity should change, or traditional masculinity, blah blah blah. And they want to listen to different voices, and I think they wanted to interview Mike Buchanan from Justice for Men and Boys, and I think they were approaching 2 other people here in the UK, and then they approached me as well. And Mike, well, the reporter already said that Mike was quite reluctant to talk to him and isn't sure if he wants to give the interview because of his negative experiences. And like, the thing is, in 10 minutes, how much time will each one of us have in 10 minutes to make their point? So they will just cut certain things we say out of context. But I'd rather be part of it and give a measured view from the men's rights movement, and maybe they're gonna add this measured positive view from the men's rights movement. I'd rather have that than having only male feminists making the point against masculinity.
Do you think it's getting to the point maybe where these issues they're not mainstream, obviously, but do you think it's at the point where they're getting close enough to the mainstream that they just can't avoid us anymore, so to speak? I mean, there was a time when they never would have even ventured to speak to people like you, I'd imagine.
True, but the problem is that they still favor the feminist point of view that men are suffering based on their masculinity, and that masculinity is the problem. Do you guys know Mike Buchanan?
Yep.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah, but the problem is Mike is definitely, I would say, he's burned. Like, you can tell that he really, really can't deal with feminism anymore, and he's been misrepresented and treated like shit by the press so many times that when he talks, you can tell that he's angry. So I'm not sure.
I don't think his demeanor though comes off as angry, right? He'll say things that are very critical, right? I know he had like his Lying Feminist of the Month award or whatever. Yeah. And then I think they interviewed one of these feminists after she got the award, and they were like, so why do you think he gave you that award? And she goes, oh, because I lied.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and it's like, so part of it is like, I think there is kind of self-awareness. They do realize that they can't maintain what they've been doing, right? They can't keep ignoring the manosphere, and And lately, I think the ongoing really popular stance has been to say men's issues are important, right? They'll acknowledge all the issues are important, but then they'll say that men's rights activists aren't doing anything, and the answer is feminism. Like that's the kind of where they've been at kind of for the last like few years, I think, that's been the popular stance.
And to a certain degree, I would actually agree with them. I think that the men's rights movement is not as effective as it could be. Obviously, one of the main reasons why we are not as effective as we could be is because of organized feminism. But on the other hand, I think we're not, and that's why I'm working on that on my website, is I don't think that we're working very well together, and I think that we could be a little bit more organized in what we're doing.
The issue is a lot of extremely wealthy and powerful men want to donate to feminist causes, and they don't want to donate to men's causes. And that's the big difference. Feminists, they pat themselves on the back and say, we're such good organizers and we did all this stuff. And it's like, you take so much government money. Like everything that you've built has been gifted to you by rich, powerful men who are reflecting the fact that they want to care for and provide for women. So that's why with a lot of men's rights things, a lot of it is focusing on the advocacy to make sure that people understand that gynocentrism is really the fundamental issue in play here.
I agree. But it's, I think it's twice the battle to tell people that there's something wrong with their perception. I don't know if we can wake so many people up.
Yeah. Oh, and it's tricky. It's super tricky, right? Because if we can't just clone feminism for men, because it's not going to solve the fundamental problem. But at the same time, doing this very theoretical work of trying to explicate very clearly what the problem is, that isn't necessarily giving people solutions in the here and now. If you want to look for like real here and now solutions, you have men's supports groups, right? Which you know are very underfunded and very sparse. And very often they're traps. Very often they're things that aren't really fundamentally focused on helping men. It's kind of like with Mankind Project, as great as they are, you can see in their rhetoric and how they do things that they kind of see society as the end. It's not men in themselves. It's we need to fix men because we want society to work. Or, you know, they end up at Good Men Project, right? Which is this very oriented. I know it's just I'm puking in my mouth a little bit just mentioning them. You know, but then I think MGTOW is probably the best example of like an on the ground, very practicable thing that you can just point men to say, here's how you can defend yourself, which is not what anyone wants to hear. It's not the solution that anyone wants. It's not the solution that MGTOW wants.
Yeah, but in a lot of ways, it is the most successful.
It is the most successful, and that's sad. It's a sad reflection on just the overall state of humanity that's kind of all men have right now.
Yeah, it's like
they have luck and they have MGTOW. They have luck and they have defense against the dark arts, defense against the thought arts.
You have to accept that you cannot win. You will not win. You can only just entirely avoid the battle.
Yeah, don't play games that you're gonna always lose.
Yeah. I don't like it. I never liked it. For me, it's too fatalistic, and by not joining the fight, in my opinion, you've already lost the fight. And by just standing by, you let the other side win. It's too fatalistic for me. It's a short-term solution. And it, just like feminism, I think it leads to the destruction of society. And I'm not saying that I'm the biggest fan of society, but I do have a weak spot for family and for responsibility. And there's just no responsibility in MGTOW. Only responsibility to your own actions.
Yeah, for themselves. But that's kind of the revolutionary part of it. Is it's a man saying, you know, I can defend myself, and maybe that's good enough. You know, maybe I don't have to, you know, have some further goal You know, that especially when it's something that they're kind of expending themselves or sacrificing themselves for. You know, it's one thing when there's a symbiosis to it, right? When you're building something that's also going to be helping you, but when that thing's going to turn around and betray you, I can kind of see the virtue in being more selfish.
Well, I think that one of the things about MGTOW that is definitely worth noting is just how incredibly threatened feminists are by it. Like, out of all of the things, for some reason, it seems to make them the most furious, aside from PUAs or something. Like, they get really, really upset about MGTOW's existence. It's like they know that, you know, it's like, wait, if we can't con men, and because they're just not interested, it's never going to work. What do we have? You know what I mean? Like, that's sort of what it seems like sometimes. So I don't know.
I also think that one of the strengths, I hate to say it, of feminist activism, this is going to sound horribly elitist of me, but it's like, I've mentioned this before, it doesn't really require a great deal of people in terms of, well, intelligence, quite frankly. It's very easy for them to just appeal to people's emotions because people viscerally want to protect women, both men and women on average. It's just something that kind of comes natural to people. Whereas when you're trying to get people on board with men's issues, you can't appeal to something that's like pre-rational, so to speak, something primitive in such an easy way as you can when you're discussing women's issues. It's why the only men who, typically the men who are on board with it are the ones who've actually experienced one of these issues, like they've been through a troubling divorce or whatever, or women who have male family members who've gone through it as well. But it's very difficult to do marketing for it beyond that.
I wonder if traps are the answer. Like, you have to like show someone a trap as a victim, right? And then say, "Oh, isn't she so cute and vulnerable? Don't you just want to protect her? Magic surprise, she has a penis. You're an MRA now." You know, I'm a pluralist. You know, never, you know, keep an egg in each basket. We'll see. We'll see how things turn out.
They had a funny article on, what was it, like, who's fucking Roosh V? It's the only time I had ever actually read one of the articles, and it was bad. Like, the things that are published on that site are just very poorly written and seem kind of unhinged. What is it? Is it like Return of Kings or something?
Yeah, Return of Kings is Roosh's site.
So they had I just had to read this because I saw it somewhere and I was like, oh, this seems interesting. And it wasn't an interesting article. The headline was really all you need to know, but it was something like how toxic feminism is turning an entire generation of young men into trap chasers.
Oh yeah, I think I saw that one. No, Roosh is actually kind of funny. Like he gets a better. The funny thing now is he's kind of disavowed pickup artistry and has gone more like traditionalist. And
yeah, I heard
yeah,
that.
and he's talked about like building up your like sexual moral fiber again after you've been too slutty for too long, and just like stuff like that. That's very, I don't know. It's very fascinating to see people just like with pendulum swings so far that way. You know,
I have to say, good for him. Good for him. I mean, I think it's absolutely okay if people rethink their values. Unfortunately, if you were very outspoken about one thing, it's very difficult for you to change to something else without completely losing your faith and people losing faith in you.
and he seems a lot happier and more well-adjusted. Than, you know, than being a pickup artist. So
yeah,
whatever that's worth.
Well, again, I think being a pickup artist, that's also just a short-term solution to quick satisfaction and nothing substantial.
Well, and it's so idiotic too. Like, a lot of people have pointed this out, where so much of the theorizing behind game is really based on acknowledging these more like kind of biological level things and generally very traditionalist notions. But then the way they're acting and going about with this knowledge is to like bang as many women as possible. So it's like, how do you think this is going to work out when you're like eventually trying to settle down and you know, you've just been like promoting this very sex positive culture for so long. You know, it's
Well, you know, I don't know if that's an entirely fair representation of what the PUA scene has evolved into, because I talked to this one guy. Now, granted, you know, this might be a no true Scotsman type thing, and that he was a very no true pickup artist type guy. But what he was saying is that it started as something very different, and it's evolved into it's fairly refined now. And now it's basically just a way for guys to help each other, teach each other how to get what they want from women, which could be long-term relationships, it could be one-night stands, but the point of it is like the emphasis on men helping other men with, you know, these are the things that seem to be working and seem to be making me happy, that keep me safe in these relationships, and this is how I negotiate with the woman so that she's not getting surprised by anything, and so that she's willing to commit to a one-night stand, and blah 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 blah. So I can see it being compatible with that if this guy is, you know, fairly accurately representing the true, like the what it all boils down to. But then he did say, like, yeah, there's a lot of people who have their own versions of being a PUA. I don't know. That guy was really cool. I had to interview with him on my live stream channel, but he was the only person that I ever. Well, it's not like I check out PUA stuff. It's not, so I shouldn't really speak too much about it. But I was surprised by how cool he was. Like, I guess at one point I had talked about PUAs and I didn't really know what I was talking about, which is true. Like, I don't really know anything about them, and so somehow I had talked about them a little bit, and he observed, and then he was like, "Oh, could I correct you?" And I was like, "Absolutely."
I think it's that sounds a bit similar to when I heard this incel talking about his experiences as an incel, and I was like, oh, I had to realize that I don't really know anything about them, only pretty much what feminists say about that. Similar with the pickup artists, and I think that all of these groups can bring very, very important insight to the table. So, for example, I think that a lot of stuff that the pickup artists learn, like they could actually teach some of that to the incels, and they could actually benefit from each other. I think that what the pickup artists teach and what they learn is very valuable. And to be honest, and I think I should probably read one or two of their books, because I'm shit at picking up girls and approaching girls. I'm way too shy. So I think I can learn a lot from them. I don't have to pick up all of their behaviors, whatever their behaviors are.
Well, one way I see incels is a lot of them are kind of like failed pickup artists. And I think that if you look at like a lot of pickup artist gurus, a lot of them, the more successful ones are going to be, you know, like more attractive men. And it kind of becomes a thing like, oh, what is it called? It's not the thought, or the, what is it? Like it's something people believe in, right? And you just believe in like the way or whatever. And you just have this like positive outlook, and it just makes everything work. And it's always like pretty blonde chicks that are shilling it, you know, because it's like, of course, when you're just like happy and go around with this positive attitude, like everyone's nice to you. But like there's a lot of people like one big thing in incels, like skull shape, right? And like you can look at that as like, yeah, this is kind of ridiculous. But then like there are a lot of men that like unfortunately they don't have chins, and it's like, that's sad, you know. It's not ideal. But I don't know, I guess you can you know, compensate for like a lack of an entire chin.
Yeah, but there are a couple of things that I think are quite difficult to compensate for. For example, I'm not the tallest guy. I'm not tiny, but I'm 1 meter 72. Don't know what that is in American height.
It's 5'8".
Okay, so it's not super tall. I'm normal, but it definitely makes it much harder for me to find a girlfriend. Taller men have it much easier, and guys that are even shorter than me, I mean, they're pretty much fucked. And yeah, you mentioned the chin and stuff like that. Yeah, I think if you're not great looking and you still want a girlfriend that doesn't look like a troll, a literal troll, then yeah, it's going to be really, really difficult unless you're really rich.
And that reminds me of people talk about femcells like they're a thing. I still maintain there's no such thing as a femcell. They all have standards that are too high. If they lower their standards enough, like they will find someone. Whereas like the same's not true for the incel necessarily. Like the incel at some point does have to find a way to like become more appealing, whether it's through PUA tricks or through like having more money or through plastic surgery or through like working out or whatever it might be. I don't believe in femcells. Femcells, they just have standards that are too high. They can lower their standard in theory low enough that some man will unsell you.
Yeah, but I think I would say that's unfair to say, because there comes a point where you can't lower your standard without giving into, let's say, getting raped. Because like if you start to date somebody that you don't find appealing in any way, shape, or form, and who is a horrible person, and you're like, well, at least I have a boyfriend, that's, yeah, I don't think that's a great solution, and I wouldn't think it's a good solution for incels either, to lower your standards to a point where you hate yourself for doing it. Yeah, you ain't gonna be happy.
I guess that's fair, because I guess you could also argue that there's a point where you tell the incel, well, just go gay, because eventually you'll find a man, right? And then that would be an equalizer from the femcel pool to the incel pool, but
yeah, I don't know how people manage. You were talking about lowering your standards. I think I agree. At a point, it becomes ridiculous. Like I don't know how manageable or it would be for the average person to be with a person that they weren't physically attracted to. I guess it just doesn't seem like a smart idea.
Yeah.
By the way, I'm exactly the same height as you, so it was kind of like, whoa, when you said guys who are any shorter are pretty much fucked. It's like. Yeah.
Made it.
Yeah, well, it's true. It's true. I mean, recently I started to see quite a lot of couples where the guys were shorter than the women, and apparently that's very unusual. But I saw a lot of them in the last couple of weeks, months. I don't know if that's a new thing.
Maybe it is. Apparently, I was reading a paper recently. Apparently, it's becoming increasingly common for women to marry down, actually. I don't know if it's extremely common, but marrying down in terms of education or in terms of incomes, it's becoming more common now.
Well, they don't have a choice now.
Yeah.
I like how that also literally translates into height, apparently, too.
By the way, anyone who's going to the ICMI is going to be so incredibly surprised by how I look. They're going to be like, "What? Nah." I'm like 6'2", and I have like tattoos, and I'm very masculine looking, and it will shock everybody, including like Spacepan, who knows what I look like in photos. Probably it'll be like, "Oh God, you are tall."
So speaking of which, who's sharing a room with me? Because I still don't have a room, and I really have to save money. It's a tough year. I know it's a tough.
There's still room in mine, because I think that it's a suite that has like either 3 or 4 beds or something.
Cool.
And we haven't Chadwick Moore. I don't know if he's confirmed if he's coming.
I kept messaging Chadwick because I'm trying to get him to go on a stream with Brian to talk about it more. And I haven't heard from him in a little while, so I'll hit him up again.
I can't believe how great the guest not the guest list, but the speakers are this year. It's just phenomenal. I really hope that the Honey Badgers are not losing too much money.
Yeah, I know Allison had recently made a video kind of pondering on the thought of like, what if this kind of bankrupts Honey Badger Radio and she has to kind of move on to something else? And it seems like some people took that as like confirmation that HBR will no longer be a thing, but I don't think that's really what she's saying. So hopefully it'll end up working out okay.
I'm choosing to believe that she's just having anxiety because she's kind of like that.
Yeah, but the thing is, I mean, when you look at how many people are coming and how many people are coming from Europe, like speakers are coming from Europe and from Australia, that's going to be ridiculously expensive. And depending on how many tickets they sold so far, I think they're going to have a very, very tough time covering the costs. And I would love to just donate £1,000 for a speaker or something, because they have this initiative to donate to the conference. I would love to do that, but at the moment I just don't have the money, unfortunately.
Yeah, I can barely pay for my own ticket.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's not. I should do that soon though, so that they. I mean, I'm gonna do it next week when I get this check. Because yeah, I mean, it's so terrible when all these people are like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna come." I'm gonna like when I used to throw like music shows and stuff, and people would be like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna come," and then it's like I open the doors, nobody even walks in for the first 45 minutes, and I'm like, and then it's supposed to start in another 45 minutes, and then another 15 minutes go by, 3 people walk in together, some like good friends of mine, and I'm like, oh god, and then like 10 minutes before like it starts to be a sort of a crowd, and then right as it starts, it's like 30 more people come in basically, and it's like, oh okay, god, this is a lot better, jeez. But that happens all the time,
Yeah,
so,
but sometimes nobody shows up.
yeah, it's happened. I mean, I don't know about nobody, but other people are coming to this. It's the first time it's been in the United States in a while, and I think people are going to come.
Yeah, I hope so. Is anybody going to the straight pride parade?
Nah,
It's too far away from where I live.
we were looking at speaking to them, like they said they're going to come on, but then they didn't, and then I was looking.
Oh, I remember. Yeah.
Somebody had them at some sort of event. I didn't really remember, like they were at the thing that was in Washington DC or something, and they were I didn't really like them. I didn't feel like they had any valid points. I feel like they were just kind of being attention whores. Like they were like, well, yeah, we are the oppressed majority and blah, blah, blah. And it was like, you know what, guys, I think that I can't actually be the guy that's going to imagine the good angle to go at this with. Like, I know that there probably is one. There probably is a good angle that you could say and that you could talk about. And, it's like, but it kind of does a little bit feel like they are just being provocative for the sake of being provocative. And it kind of bothers me. Just, and this is personal, like this is a personal thing for me, but I really get annoyed with people, straight people who are like, oh, it's you're only cool if you're gay, everyone hates straight people. I'm like, what are you talking about? Everyone hates gay people. They like trans people. Like you're only cool with the left if you're trans.
Poseidon Big Time in the chat says it's a troll. It was proving a point. See, that's the thing, though. That's the way everybody took it, right? When it was first a thing. But I saw they're talking to Milo, and the guys that Milo was talking to weren't the same as the guy who was part of the organization that I had reached out to. So I'm not exactly sure what like their structure is or whatever. But he just ghosted on me, so whatever. And then like he just posts like gay drama on Facebook all the time. So I don't know. I don't know what their thing is, but yeah, it seems like they actually are like really promoting it, like they think straight people are oppressed. No, Black and people, I know you're saying you think it was a joke, but I really think that they're legitimately trying to make like a big thing of it. I don't know if maybe that's a facade because they need that in order to like get their approval. If it's just a big joke, then maybe that makes it harder for them, for Boston or whatever, to say that it's legitimate. But
I would say.
But,
I
I just wanted to give a caveat because I sort of didn't. I should have included this to Philip. Ex-gays are definitely very discriminated against. That's the thing. So, sorry.
I would say that straight people do face a little bit of discrimination nowadays, obviously, because they are not allowed to speak up when we talk about certain topics. I mean, I speak so often with people and I'm like, oh, I'm so glad that I'm still a little bit gay, that I'm kind of bisexual, so I can actually criticize certain things that straight people just can't criticize at all. And certain jobs, you're just more likely to get certain jobs if you are not straight because they want to fill the quotas. So I would say a little bit of oppression of straight people is slowly sneaking in, for example, in firefighters and the police force and stuff like that. Of course, gay people are being discriminated on a personal level as well, but on an institutional level, I think that people are going to be they are starting to feel it.
Yeah. My favorite thing about this parade is that with Milo as the Grand Marshal, apparently Milo's gonna go as the Sultan of whatever country that was. Sultan of was it Burma or I forget.
And what does it represent?
The Sultan of the country that just passed a bunch of like anti-gay laws. That was in the news.
God.
Yeah.
Brunei.
Brunei. I knew Burma was wrong. I was like, what is it? Brunei.
Yeah, I would actually like to attend the parade, but I can't. I'm back in Scotland, and I would have attended as an ally, obviously, because I'm not completely straight. But yeah, I would support the straight lifestyle.
Yeah, and I think that there's like I'm kind of with Prince on the fact that there's not nothing there in terms of making the point. I do generally see it as like insofar as it's completely unironic as being a step in the wrong direction, just because with this whole Rainbow Coalition thing, people are saying, why don't we add S for straight? How come they're not on there, right? And it's like being on that Rainbow Coalition is a curse. Like I don't want to be on it. Like it's like I got drugged up in a room surrounded by a bunch of freaks, and I just like don't want to be here. Like it should never have been a thing.
But if you add straight people to it, it would just implode, which would be a great thing. Because if everybody's included, then there's no point for it, and that's exactly what I've been saying for a long time. There is no point for it, anyways.
It's just everyone except for the furries and necrophiliacs.
What about the furries?
Yeah, just add there that they can have a parade next year. It'll be great.
By the way, when we're talking about incels and that guys can't get girls and stuff like that, here where I live in my small Scottish village, there is one guy, and he's actually really good looking. He's got a beard, and he's a bit overweight and hairy and stuff like that. And as far as I know, he's never had a girlfriend, and he's the loveliest guy you can imagine. And obviously, I don't want him to become gay or anything, but I keep telling him, dude, if you were gay, you would have the time of your life. Like everybody would be like all the bears would love him. And it's such a shame that not a single girl is into that. That was just a statement.
Yeah, it is.
Sorry, I keep going in and out. Today I've been having sickness in my stomach and stuff, so I've been like periodically going to the back. I ate some really nasty food before I went to bed last night. I had to go to the gas station and get some crap, so I got this Velveeta hamburger, macaroni, and cheese thing, and don't ever eat that. It's kind of like gas or like 7-Eleven nachos, but instead of being like mac and cheese. Oh god, it's awful, and I just feel sick. So I keep like getting up and drinking more water and crap. So
I love the 7-Elevens here because they sell super cheap beer and dim sum, and that's why I'm never gonna lose weight and always be chubby. Because beer and dim sum are available 24/7. I've been living without a refrigerator for a whole year, and I only got sick from food poisoning one time. I'm proud of that.
Well, I'm vegetarian, and I constantly eat moldy bread and like stuff that, like yesterday I ate some garlic bread that was 2 months out of date, and I'm doing absolutely fine.
Yeah, I have this theory that if you eat things that you're not supposed to, your body just becomes stronger. You gain the iron
Absolutely.
stomach.
I'm like Wolverine. My
Oh,
stomach is Wolverine.
That's why you didn't wash your hands. That's the secret.
Exactly. By the way, I just read something on Twitter. Apparently Scarlett Johansson said just said in an interview, I should be allowed to play any person or any tree or any animal. I think something like that. She said because remember there was this controversy that she played a particularly Asian character in Ghost in a Shell, and that she was supposed to play a trans person in a movie that now isn't being made because she was bullied out of it. And yeah, good for her. She should be allowed to play any person she wants to play.
Oh, whatever. That bitch is just trying to be Mulan. She just wants to be Mulan in the live action remake. I see right through it.
I actually watched the Ghost in the Shell last night. I had seen it in the theaters, but I was not in a good mood that night, and so I had bought it on my PS4. And it's a good movie. It is quite good. I mean, I was a really big fan of the series, like not the initial two animation movies so much, but there was a series called Standalone Complex, which is like the best thing ever. And the thing about it is that, and this is the whole point of her character is the major I forget her actual name, something Japanese, major something. She is a fully cyborg person, and so the only part of her that's human is a brain. And in the show, she came from she was in the womb. Her mother was probably like 8 or 9 months pregnant, really far along, and her mother was in a terrorist attack. She was on a bus that got gassed, with some nerve gas or something. But they managed to rescue the fetus, and so they took it and, I don't know, grew it a little bit more, the special womb that will create the homo what do you call it, Spaceman? The homo state, yes. The whatever womb they have to grow babies in. And then they were like, well, okay, so I guess her body was too weak or whatever, so they put it in a little android type body. And then they gave her new bodies as her brain got bigger. And so in the movie, it's different how it works, but it's the same thing. So she doesn't have a body at all. And if you look at the show, she doesn't really look distinctly Asian. Like she could be, she might as well be white, like it's hard to tell, and so.
But she's white in the anime.
She what?
In the anime, she's supposed to be white. Like the bodies that her model are supposed to be like Caucasoid ones, because you see other characters in the anime that are like clearly more Asian.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it seemed like anyway. And so like people who are freaking out about this are like, it's like, okay, but you're obviously not actually a fan. And then the other thing about it is that the original creator of the manga, he was the one who got Scarlett Johansson the role. Like, because the thing is that, like, think about being an Asian person. Asian people love American pop culture. Like they absolutely love it. And because they don't like Asian culture in general really likes things that are very, very highly produced and very fancy state-of-the-art visuals and everything. They don't really have that movies that are like that. Like sometimes in China they have these really cool movies, but it's pretty rarely compared to American movies. So they love American movies, they love American movie stars, they love Scarlett Johansson. And the other thing about Asian culture is that they get rather bored of looking at other Asian people all the time. Like if you go to Tokyo, everybody tries desperately, to the point of it being weird, to differentiate each other by like dyeing their hair, bleaching their skin, putting on a lot of like tanning ridiculously and getting like really, really dark. Like all of
the Ganguro girls.
Yeah. They hang out. There's a lot of them that hang out in Shibuya, and they try to look like they're Hawaiian. And so they're like there's these girls, and they're wearing these like platform shoes that are like sandals with straw on the side, and then the boys will be wearing like a unbuttoned like a Hawaiian shirt that's unbuttoned down to like their belly button, and it's very strange, like they're very, very dark. Apparently they tan all the time, and they get they dye their hair a lot, they bleach their hair a lot, and so they like looking at beautiful American film stars. They like that. And so the idea of like trying to like this what they wanted, you know what I mean? Like this is the movie, and it did way better in Asia than it did in North America and Europe. So that's the funny thing about it.
Well, and two of the most popular animes now, you had Full Metal Alchemist and Attack on Titan, both of which have like extremely aggressively, decidedly European style settings with very, very European looking characters.
And those are great shows, both of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, since we're talking about anime now, we could talk about the Vic Mignogna thing briefly.
What's that?
So Vic Mignogna is a voice actor, does the voice of like Broly and a bunch of other things, and he is very well known and very well liked in the anime community, and he's been Me Too'd this year. And what's different is that he's actually decided to fight these people and sue them for defamation, because they basically like behind the scenes, they tweeted at like Funimation and like Sony and things, and got a bunch of his contracts canceled, and then went public with all these big accusations. And all of these companies took the woke route and ended up trying to kind of distance themselves. They tried to kind of sidestep around directly accusing him of any wrongdoing, but they claimed that they had their investigation and that they were no longer going to hire him. So their defense is that technically they didn't say anything that's not true. They did have a quote unquote investigation, and it's true that they are no longer hiring him, right? But this is all happening in the state of Texas, where it's like being litigated. And in Texas, if someone can infer pretty reasonably, kind of read between the lines a statement, that statement can be considered defamation. And the claim they're making is that, the implication was that he was guilty of like kissing people or touching people inappropriately. And it turns out, when we look into these accusations, a lot of them are ones that these people have made on behalf of others who haven't really confirmed it. And there's been absolutely no evidence for it. And absolutely no police reports, nothing like that. They're very, very standard, flimsy Me Too style accusations. But it's very exciting because we finally have somebody really standing up to these people. And what's coming out now are these depositions, because they're in discovery. So they're going through all these like hundreds and hundreds of tweets of things to authenticate all of them before they have like the proper trial for it. And you can really tell that these people did not think that they were ever going to be held to account, to have to justify their claims and justify these kinds of statements they've been making on social media. So that's been my entertainment this week, is watching the Ron Toye, or now he's been called Soye. He's this wispy little Twinkie guy whose fiance is one of the main accusers, and he has all these very fiery tweets, and you just see him going one by one, like, I can't confirm if that's my feet. It looks like my feet, right? He's just like he's the most unlikable person. You really got to see it. And then you contrast that with Vic Mignogna being deposed, and he's like this like handsome, blonde, extremely nice, extremely charismatic, and like their lawyer is just like this guy who just like literally sounds like Cancer Manifest. Just Cancer is imminent. He's just like, can you please read on to the round? It's just like my throat is sore from listening to it. It got to me through the ears. It's just awful. But it's like a cartoon. My dream is for this to one day be turned into an anime. For us to finally go full circle.
I feel like the whole Me Too thing has completely lost momentum, and I heard so many people, even women, recently defending Harvey Weinstein and saying, "Look, I mean, if you are invited to a room with a producer, what do you expect's going to happen? And if he disappears in the bathroom and comes out naked or whatever, as long as he doesn't stand in front of the door blocking you from leaving the room, nothing really has happened." So I think this is the time where people are really starting to say, look, there's a very clear difference between allegations of some misconduct and actual rape or real sexual assault happening. So good on him for defending himself.
Yeah, because most people just kind of fold under the accusation or try to kind of sweep it under the rug. So it's really refreshing that he's actually going after these people. It was kind of like Donald Trump at one point, had kind of toyed with the idea of going after people who have accused him of things, which, frankly, I'd love to see that. Like,
he would never get anything done.
Oh, probably not. Probably not.
He's like, hold on, I have to pause my presidency for a year while I go handle this.
Well, I go on Thought Patrol for a year.
Yeah.
Have you guys heard about the social media summit in the White House, and what do you know anything about it?
Yeah, I watched the speech. I think it largely, from what I'm gathering, is not like a whole lot happened, but in terms of like, okay, so Tim Pool was kind of complaining. He's like, yeah, I mean, there was no discussion of a solution, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, okay, Tim, but you're there. You're one of out of all of the people there, the person who would be the veritable almanac of all of these people, all of what their issues have been, how they've been censored, everything like that. You're the person who would know it the best. You don't need that, but like most of the other people there do need to meet each other and just realize like all these things, realize how much the president knows. And then from now and onward, that's when people start thinking about, like, what are they going to actually do? And so I have high hopes because it's been so long that they have not been talking about this issue. And then, and I was just kind of like, is Trump unaware of this? Because I don't think he's unaware. But it was like, is he just never going to talk about it? But what I really think it is that he had his hands tied with things like the trade war in China, numerous things, the border thing. The first year and a half of his presidency, or like 2 years, was just him defending himself against the Russiagate conspiracy theory. Like that's all he was doing. And so it's like now he can actually get to some of the things that are sort of, I guess, a little bit more controversial. And it's definitely controversial to try to be like, hey, the social media companies are tyrannical and they were given this crazy power. Like, if the thing is, if Trump started trying to deal with social media companies, if he hadn't had some victories, with turning around the economy and things like, what was I gonna? with successfully fending off the Russiagate bullshit. Like if he started trying to do something about social media, they'd be like, oh no, he's a Russian agent, he's trying to take over our social media. Oh, like that's how they would probably spin it, you know? And so you know, like hopefully something is going to happen now, because he does seem pretty aware of the scope of it. And so that's refreshing to me. But I don't know if there's been any progress at all.
I think all optics, honestly. I don't really expect anything to come out of it. Yeah, hi to the doggo. That's a cute pupper. Yeah, like I'd like to see like I'd rather see it be something very radical if we're gonna have this sort of a thing. Like just like I kind of resent the fact that it seems spicy to people that people get their news from people that aren't Google or CNN, and that apparently the spokesperson for these like fringe independent journalists is like Tim Pool. Like I don't like no. I'd rather see a president who actually would like take a stance of like real extremism, being like, you know what, the SPLC is canceled, and we're gonna.
Oh my god, I fully support that. Get rid of the SPLC.
But I get it; it's not a good look. He's playing kind of an optics game, so I'll kind of sit here in McGrave Hill territory and just see what happens.
But man, if he manages to do something that makes, you know, YouTube like it used to be back when I first started, you know, like if YouTube became like it was in 2016 or 2015, I'd vote for him. I would totally vote for him just for that.
YouTube should just split its platform. They should have a spicy platform where anything goes, and then they should have Care Bear mode, and that can be the default.
You guys have no idea how lucky you are with having Trump as a president at the moment, even though he's a weirdo and he's flawed, and I do think that he's a little bit of an idiot and a buffoon. But the problem is here in Europe, like no leader of a country stands up for free speech at all, and it's really sickening. I have no idea where we're going to in Europe. So like, good luck with Trump. I hope he really changes something in America, and I hope he inspires some of the politicians in Europe to do something similar.
What's the skinny on Angela Merkel trembling a whole bunch?
I didn't really look into it. Well, she said that she's fine. I have no idea. Maybe it's exhaustion, but maybe it's something more serious. It
kind of looked like Parkinson's.
I don't know what it is, but I think I wish that Angela Merkel, I wish her all the best, and I hope that she retires soon and goes to a tropical island and relaxes, because she really tried. I do believe that she tried to do the best in the situation. She failed, but I think she's a decent human being, and I don't wish her anything bad. That's all I can say as a German.
Media content says Trump is a moron, but so is the entire Democratic Party. I do think that there's a false equivalence going on. Trump is there's plenty to criticize about him. He has his genius, though. He definitely does, and it's not him being eloquent. It's a different type of communication that is actually very effective for what he's trying to do. But he's at least trying to do good things. The Democrats are actively trying to like do bad things to America. Like it's very clear that they do not want the best for their own citizens, you know?
Yeah.
So,
I like this article on Merkel. It says, Mrs. Merkel had blamed the previous incident on dehydration. She was offered a glass of water, but did not drink it.
Well, as I said, I wish her all the best. By the way, speaking of American politics, and that there are only idiots amongst the Democrats, which is a real shame. I mean, I really wish that, and I wish that for all our countries, we need robust parties with like good policies that they can like balance each other out. And it's horrible to see that in Germany, in the UK, in America, the parties just suck for the most part. I think America, the conservatives are actually doing okay, but the Democrats, they really need to get their shit together. But have you guys heard of Dan Crenshaw? The senator, I think he's a senator from Texas.
Yeah, with the eye patch.
Oh,
yeah.
God.
He's sexy.
He is sexy as fuck. He's smart. He's humble. He's got a gorgeous wife. His policies are great. He's just on the right from Obama, actually, like somewhere between Obama and, let's say, Trump. And I really, really hope that he's going to be president in 2024. And there is actually a video when you Google his name on YouTube, Dan Crenshaw, president. It'll lead you to an interview that he gave, and almost all the viewers sent in questions, and almost everybody asked the same question: are you going to run for president in 24?
Huh. Do you know who I want to eventually run for office? I don't know if she would start with president, but
Hillary Clinton?
Fuck off. Harmeet Dillon, who's the lawyer who represents all of the free speech cases. She represented James Damore at Google. She represents Andy Ngo now, and I guess she's taking on, or she was at least at the social media summit.
What's her name again?
Harmeet Dillon, and it's Dillon spelled DHILON, I believe, and Harmeet is like HARMEET.
Yeah, found her. Okay.
Yeah, and she's really great. She's a very good speaker, and she she seems to get it done, from what I can tell. She has.
Just from photos, I would say I don't trust her eyes, but I would have to see her in action to form an opinion.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm thinking like. Okay, I don't know if I'm even thinking president. She might just be like one of those kick-ass lawyer senators that, you know, kind of like Ted Cruz or something, where it's like,
brilliant, yeah.
Okay, I don't want him to like actually be the president, but I love watching him grill Mark Zuckerberg.
To be honest, like I think there are certain politicians that I don't fully agree with. Sometimes even politicians I disagree with, but I still think they're very, very important for democracy and important to bring their special flavor into the mix. For example, I actually do like Mike Pence in a certain way. I would never want him to be president of the United States, but as one of several voices in the government, I appreciate him.
I haven't really seen a whole lot from him.
He's ultra conservative.
Yeah, he seems like someone that I don't really trust so much. Just that's the vibe I get from him, but that doesn't even have to do with his politics or anything. It's just more like the way he speaks. But you know, people have ways of detecting sincerity that are different from each other. You know, a lot of people think that any compassionate acting woman, it must be sincere, which is the opposite of the truth. And I like to think I have a pretty good bullshit meter. With Pence, I never feel like he's being the least bit genuinely authentic when he speaks, but I don't think it's necessarily that he's hiding anything. I think it's more that he's just reserved.
I would think that he's got to stick up his butt. And I think that has to do with him being overly conservative and very religious. And I think that his views are too conservative and too far in one direction. But I don't mind that being part of a government as long as there are enough people to counter that and to balance it out.
Yeah, at this point, I just want Adam Kokesh to win, because that's his whole thing is he wants to become president so he can just cancel the federal government. If he can just stay out of jail long enough and not get too high, then maybe it'll happen.
We'll see.
Okay, so we're past 2 hours, and it's fine. We can go for a little bit more, but like I feel like we haven't included a lot of topics that would explicitly include Ashley in the conversation. So if we want to talk about like a few more other things, change the subject just to round out the show so that we can. I'm not sure. What like I don't have a I don't have an idea about this, but.
Ashley?
I have no idea, to be honest. It was mostly Derek's idea for me to be on here. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's okay.
What's your background, if I may ask?
Well, he writes articles for altleft.com. So
that's you. I just
things.
realized. Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you've been on Robert Stark's podcast recently, right?
Yeah, I was just on there like last week or something.
Yeah, I'm a part of that whole like crew that he's involved with, like, you know, Brandon Adamson's website. That's altleft.com. Like about 2 years ago or something, I just started messaging him. I had a lot of thoughts about things, and he just got sick of me bombarding him with messages. So I was like the only additional writer to that site from that point on, apart from him. So yeah, I just write polemical things for that website, giving my take on things, and contribute to Derek's streams, and that's basically it. That's the totality of my contribution to the internet.
Remind us of the definition of the word polemical, because it's one of those words that I've looked up probably about 20 different times because it's so close to political, or so I can never actually remember what is the distinction, so I always have to look it up again.
Just offering my opinion basically on things, sometimes in a cantankerous way. Try to have like a fact-based approach, although I have a lot of, I guess, kind of weird ideas. Yeah.
Maybe I just didn't know what it meant. Okay.
It's cool.
Polemic is contentious rhetoric that is intended to support a specific position by aggressive claims and undermining of the opposing position. Hey, that's kind of like what I do.
Yeah, I think a lot of us are like that.
I don't get
like that.
Super into politics. I used to think a lot about British politics, but then I realized that thinking about British politics was driving me to the brink of suicide. So I stopped thinking about it, and things have got much better from that point on. I was being a little bit facetious, by the way, just there. I just mean I found it depressing. There are lots of things. Yeah.
Well, you're very young, right?
Yes. Yeah.
You're like 20 or some crap.
21. I think I was 20 when I started talking to Derek. Yeah, because it was in June of 2018. Yeah.
Well, because the thing is that when, like, I tell people that when they're young, because this is sort of what I was like, not entirely, but like, when I was 23, I got really, really into politics because George W. Bush was reelected, and I was very surprised by that. And then we all hated him because he had brought us into war, and that seemed like a thing that was very crazy to us. So I didn't think he would be reelected. And yeah, it totally drove me crazy because like I wasn't equipped to deal with the intenseness of actually really, really thinking about contemporary politics. And so I forced myself to stop and just focus on music and writing, and then like kind of socio-political stuff, but not so much. And I was a lot happier that way. And so one of the things I tell younger people is that, you know, if you're interested in things like the arts or like just some other stuff, that's what you do when you're younger. Get good at that other stuff. Think about that other stuff more. And then eventually you're going to learn about politics through osmosis just by being alive for a while. And that's the only real way to learn about politics. Like, you start understanding them based on what keeps happening over and over. And then eventually you start following it more because for some reason you'll feel like you have to, and then you know a lot more about it. And then it's more appropriate to like start really, really caring. Unless you've been somebody that's kind of always followed politics and have gotten used to it and you've never really had a problem with it. Because I feel like there's a lot of people who, you know, I was talking to this young communist kid the other week, and he was really, really frustrating because he just doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, he thinks because he read, like, he's actually like sat down and read Lenin and read Marx books and read Trotsky and probably read, you know, Stalin's autobiography, then that means he knows more about, you know, what you actually need to know about Marxism today than I do. And I'm like, okay, I don't think you understand how things work. Like, you don't learn about what you need to know about Marxism today by reading what was written like about 100 years ago. That's not like you have to like be aware of how things have changed, how things have evolved, and you're simply not. And he had no concept of that. Like, he just was like, no, blah, 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 I know more about it than you. And it was just like, Jesus Christ, dude, you told me at one point that you wanted to be a film director. Because you do that instead. This is really irritating and pointless of you to be like this. So,
oh, this was the guy who was gonna be on, and then you were like,
yeah, I was like, fuck off. He was annoying.
Well, maybe he would have been a nice addition to a lively debate against communism.
No. The thing was, I had talked to him about a year prior to, like, I probably talked to him about a year and a half ago, and he was worth talking to. Like, he was just getting into Antifa stuff, but he kind of I mean, he was always different when chatting. Like, when talking and I can hear his voice, you can hear how confident or non-confident someone is about saying something. And so it wasn't hard to talk to him because he wasn't all that confident. And it was like, oh, you know that's kind of not true, right? And he's like, wait, what? And I'm like, well, yeah, this. And he's like, oh, well, wouldn't you think? You know, he started realizing that there was things that I did know that he didn't know. In text, it was totally different. He thought he knew everything. And so there is a chance that if he came back on air, it wouldn't be so bad. But at the same time, I think also because of the fact that like a year and a half had gone by, he thinks he knows all this stuff, and he actually literally thinks he knows more about what you would know, what you would need to know about communism today than I do, which is absurd. Like, it's like, no, you know what communists wrote about communists 100 years ago, which by the way, even that didn't even pan out in practice.
And maybe it's
Conquest of Bread stream sometimes where we read through that and make fun of it because it's really dumb. That's what their entire thing is based on. That's their Bible, is Conquest of Bread, where the author brilliantly compares humans to ants, and this is why we have to have communism, because humans and ants are like the same, bro.
I always wanted to be compared to ants and wanted to live like ants.
Right, because they never see themselves as the ant, right? They see themselves as essentially God.
Yeah.
So.
Are you guys up to date with like movies in the cinema and Netflix shows at all?
I don't watch Netflix. The last movie I saw in the theater was Endgame, which was trash. It was the biggest disappointment of my life, probably. Like, I loved Infinity War so incredibly much. I've watched that movie maybe over 30 times at this point. I thought it was completely brilliant, and I own it. And then Endgame, they just ruined everything. So I'm
That's
very
really interesting. That's interesting because for me it was the opposite around. I only liked certain scenes in Infinity War, and I actually really, really liked Endgame, except of certain scenes.
I hated Endgame, and I need to know sort of why. Okay, so I need to ask a few questions. How many of the other Marvel movies had you seen?
All of them.
Okay. Did you really follow the comics?
Yes.
Okay.
Since I was a kid.
Okay. Well, oh yeah, that's true. You're all into comics. I knew that. I just have to say, I don't understand that at all. Like, I thought that Infinity War was just this like brilliantly crafted archetypal drama, and with amazing acting, with an amazing gripping story. Like you go into that movie and you're on the edge of your seat from the beginning. Like, it's like you hear the scary music and they're like, we are Asgardians, we are not a warship, and they're being shot. And then like Thanos is there and he's like, I know what it's like to lose. Feel so desperately that you're right. And then from then on, it's like it doesn't get old. It doesn't get
okay. I have to say, so
okay.
I loved Thanos in Infinity War, and I didn't like him at all in Endgame. But I can forgive that because I think that Infinity War is shot from the perspective of Thanos, where Endgame is shot from the perspective of the heroes. So so that's why in Infinity War you understand his reasoning, and in Endgame he's just the big bad guy. What I really liked about Endgame was the story of Hawkeye, and that it was actually really dark. And I really did enjoy the journey of the heroes. I have to say I only watched Endgame once, but everything except of Captain Marvel and the feminist scene where all the girls fight together, I thought that was so forced. But except of that, I actually
Thor being fat, like what was that?
Oh yeah, okay, good. Yeah, maybe except of being fat. Yeah, okay, now that I think about it,
I was
there were
like, why did they do like why like I'm like, okay, is this just an excuse to punch down on, powerful white men? Is that the entire point here? Because it's kind of what it seems like to me.
It's quite possible. I think it was okay for him to be overweight or not in shape in the beginning, but
Yeah.
I think that by the middle of the movie he should have just transformed his old glorious self.
Yeah, it would be funny if they just had a little scene where he's like, "Oh, I gotta lose some weight," and he like runs to the gym and comes back and he's all buff again.
He would just have to like because with electricity you burn fat, so he could just do that and lose all his weight. But the main reason why I'm asking is because I watched Dark Phoenix, the last X-Men movie, a couple of times, which was completely trashed.
Everyone said that, yeah.
I really liked it. I think it's a
really?
simple, it's a very simple and small movie, but it's a movie about mental illness and instability, and I thought it was beautifully, like from a character arc, it was beautifully crafted. But I really like the characters, and I'm a huge X-Men fan. I would say give it a watch. But what I noticed both in X-Men Dark Phoenix and in a couple of TV shows that are supposedly female driven and have strong female characters, in that case I'm talking about a TV show called Jessica Jones. It's quite interesting because, like, for example, I actually really like Jessica Jones, and I watch that and I'm like, wow, for a TV show that is supposed to empower women, it only shows the darkest and most destructive and flawed sides of women, which, because I mean, women are as flawed as men, and I like TV shows with flawed male characters, but they don't show a single sane, strong female character. Like in Jessica Jones, Jones, all the female characters are completely fucked up, and the only characters that you kind of can sympathize with are the 1 or 1.5 man that you get in the TV shows. When it comes to Dark Phoenix, the story is literally about a girl suffering huge trauma. So Jean Grey, she suffers a huge trauma in childhood, and then Charles saves her, creates certain protection blocks in her brain, and erases her memory of the trauma to protect her. And now, 20 years later, something happens to her, and she starts to remember, and she starts to go insane because there is a power in her that she can't control. And another female character, Jessica Chastain's character, who is an alien, becomes like a treacherous voice in her head telling her to stop listening to those old white men, and to like embrace her own power, and that she has been controlled by man all her life, and that she should stop being controlled. And then she goes mental, so to speak, and she almost kills Charles. Spoiler alert. And in the very end, she stands up against Jessica Chastain's character, and she forgives Charles for what he did. And she says, I know what you did through love. You wanted to help me. And she saves Charles and all of that. And I watched this movie, and I was like, wow, this movie really, like, when you really watch it, it's like Charles was the voice of reason and really tried to help, even if he made a couple of mistakes. And Jessica Chastain's character is feminism, trying to manipulate women into hating men, and abusing their power to destroy everything. And in the end, she destroys Jessica Chastain and says, no, we have to be a family, we have to stand together. And I would like, I think I think they didn't realize that they actually made an anti-feminist movie, which I really enjoyed.
I don't know, maybe they did realize it though, because I swear there's been more and more things that have been coming out that have these like very like almost overtly anti-feminist themes. If you really look at what happens in the story, like now I'm making no apologies for this. I'm not going to say I liked this in any way, but the way that Game of Thrones ended, it was like, whoa, like, and there's a number of other things that have been kind of like that recently. So yeah, I mean, there's still the cringy feminist stuff, but that does sound interesting. I'm glad you told me about that, because I didn't know about that.
And I don't know if you're into soundtracks and stuff, but the soundtrack of the movie is just breathtakingly beautiful. It's composed by Hans Zimmer, and it just, like, the whole movie, like, there is no fun in the movie. There is not a single funny scene, I think, in the whole movie, and everything is focused on a family falling apart, and you hear it in the music. I really liked it, but it's a small movie. That's why a lot of people were very disappointed, because they just came out of Endgame and they are used to these Marvel productions, and this. It was small, and it was not perfectly crafted. I think the editing sucked at certain points, and it wasn't long enough. But if you get it from a personal, character-driven movie, I think it's very good.
Yeah, I actually so I wrote a script for a video that I've been really behind in videos, so I haven't been, like, I have all these collabs that I'm supposed to be doing with people that I really want to do. This is one of them. And there's a guest that we had who's a MGTOW, who's a father, and his name is Mephitus, and he has a really great voice and very nice mic, and I realized that he'd be good to read this script, because it's about Gamora and Thanos' relationship in Infinity War, and how I forget what I'm calling it. I think I'm going to call it something like why it was necessary for Gamora to love Thanos, because that's like they focus very overtly on the fact that, you know, Thanos loves Gamora, but what was sort of in there that they didn't really talk about at all was that Gamora loved Thanos. And I started really analyzing that, and there is a real purpose of it. Like when he first comes and, you know, exterminates half of her planet, he manages to calm her, and, you know, she's taken away from her mother, but he calms down, or she calms down when she meets Thanos, and then doesn't even really care when the people are all shot. And so there's like this weird kind of paradoxical thing about the killing of her. And I felt like I feel like what we were talking about with Professor Xavier and Jean Grey and that situation. It just made me want to bring that up. I thought that that was one of the better. I mean, there were so many good things about Infinity War to me, but I really did like the way they really went into their relationship between Thanos and Gamora, because there was so much depth there.
Well, and didn't Endgame have a whole plot with like an alternate reality that was kind of like a time travel style plot that basically like erases the majority of events that actually happened in the movies?
Kinda.
In parts.
See, and that's the thing that, like, I love American Horror Story, and this is gonna be a spoiler, but fuck it. It's been out for almost like a year now. But they just like the most recent season last fall was like Apocalypse, right? And like they ended up resolving the whole thing with a stupid time travel plot. And I realized like they did all this work kind of like putting Easter eggs in and tying in all these seasons together in like a really interesting way. And this was the first season where they really kind of started bringing them together and doing things that at first seemed really, really interesting. But like I realized at the end, like, oh wait, now we're on a different timeline. So like literally every single thing could be different now. Like,
Okay.
There's something that makes you feel very cheated, you know, about that sort of an ending.
Yeah, they did that with the DC universe. They did an entire reset. I think just because the DC story arcs are actually a lot more complicated than the Marvel story arcs. Like in the typical year in the DC universe, like something like probably like 4 or 5 things happen to each character, and then in Marvel it's like 2 or 3 years can go by without any substantive changes in the Marvel character's life. In DC, there's like characters where it's like, you know, hey, this is Robin, he's the 4th one or something, you know what I mean? Like there's like different people who are inherit superhero roles and all of these things like that. Like the original Robin was Dick Grayson. Dick Grayson grew up to be Nightwing. The second Robin died. Now there's like a 3rd Robin. I don't know. Maybe they're on to a 4th right now by now. And so I think what kind of happened was that the writers just got overburdened with trying to keep track of all of the different stuff and all of the, you know, like how does this actually work? How do we fit things together and make it continue to be interesting and make sense? So instead they just did a reset where they're in a parallel universe where like it's like all the same characters, but nothing had none of the same things had actually happened.
But they did that with Marvel as well, and it's quite infuriating because I've been following these stories for all of my life, and all of a sudden they say, oh, by the way, none of that ever happened. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I invested tens of thousands of like pounds into these stories, and I really care about the stories and the characters, and now you tell me that they're not the same people anymore and none of what happened before mattered. I got really upset with that.
You were like Kathy Bates in Misery.
Absolutely. No, I want my to stay exactly the same way I like them.
They're about to do a reset, and you just take a hammer to its foot. Stay in the bed.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I'm. It's such a shame. I mean, the last couple of years, it was so tough to keep reading comic books because of all the SJW bullshit that they forced into it. And what's really infuriating is that, like, at least since the 80s, there has been so much diversity in comic books. And like one of my all-time favorite characters, for example, was a character called Captain Marvel, but not the Captain Marvel that was played by fucking Brie Larson. It's actually a black character, a black
Oh yeah.
And she is so cool. Her costume is amazing, and now people like me, we are being accused of being racist and misogynist for complaining about Brie Larson, and I'm like, sorry, but our stories have been inclusive and diverse all of my life, and and now you're saying, oh, they were always dominated by white men and all that crap, and now we have to reinvent everything. We have to make Iron Man a woman and Wolverine a woman. Well, actually,
Yeah, it's like last time I checked, Storm was the leader of the X-Men in like the 70s.
Yeah, and she rocked. And like
no one had a problem with it.
Nobody, not a single person. All the people that are being called misogynists and racists now, they loved these people of color and these female characters because they were well written and nobody had a problem with it. And now, just because it's being politicized and because the stories suck, we start to complain, and now we're the bad guys. It's absolutely horrible.
Well, I do think it's a tactic. I do think that feminists do like try really hard to make men angry so that they can play victim, and then even if men don't really get angry, they'll just say that we did anyway. Like Anita Sarkeesian being the perfect example of that. Like, she did everything she could to be insulting and awful, and then she still dramatically exaggerated the problem and played victim way more than she deserved, or not the problem, but her critics and the type of thing that she actually went through. And it was like, no, you can capitalize off of your victimhood, so you're preemptively asking, like literally asking for it. And it's kind of like they're trying to do that, like they release a movie, like they announced that a movie is going to have a female lead. Like, let's say they're going to make a female James Bond. On the same literal day, they would also publish an article like, male geeks are furious about the female James Bond, and the two articles are published at the exact same time. You know what I mean? And they would expect nobody to notice that, except for, of course, we would. And then they'd be like, "Oh, look, you're mad! See, you're so mad! Oh, why you mad, bro?"
And don't forget the fact,
like, oh, what?
And don't forget that at the same time, not only would they announce like a female James Bond or something like that, but at the same time they would immediately attack male James Bonds and the patriarchy. So they wouldn't just say, oh, by the way, we have a female James Bond. They would immediately politicize it even before anybody could say anything negative about it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say another good example of like women clearly baiting people into getting the reaction they want is that women from the Fortnite so-called beater video from earlier this year. That one is just like the apex of it.
What was it about?
That was the one where there was a couple and the guy was playing Fortnite and the woman was screaming at him and throwing things at him, and he walks off screen and like slaps her, and then she goes and like pretends that she's in pain, right? And then she starts screaming, "You're a wife beater!" And then it went viral because they clipped it in such a way that it looked bad. But if you watch the whole thing, it's like, no, she's clearly like she clearly got exactly what she wanted.
Like I'm remembering, wasn't there some this was somewhere in Europe, like it seemed almost like it was in Eastern Europe, and there was some woman that was like freaking out on the police, and she just slapped her, and she was like, ah. Do you know what I'm talking about? Hold on, I'm gonna look it up on YouTube because I need to actually find it. It was quite.
Do you guys want to get my idea for a comic? This would be a finally like a strong feminist empowered character. It's about a love doll, and the love doll becomes the superhero because basically I'm imagining the plot is you have a husband and wife that are having like issues, right? And the man decides to get a love doll in order to like kind of satiate himself, right, while they're working stuff out, and he kind of keeps it a secret. And then the wife discovers the doll, and they have this big fight, right? And then eventually, like one of their kids finds the love doll and like doesn't understand it's like a sex doll, and like turns it into like a robot, and then the robot ends up like saving the day. Well, doll girl.
What do you smoke?
I think it's a good idea.
I think it's a great idea.
Like maybe the wife accuses the man of something, right? And then he's like in the jail. So then like they use the doll as like a robot to like break in. But then they just like see this like walking love doll thing going in there, and they're just like too weirded out by it to like intervene or something. I don't know.
I found the clip, and I'm seeing the time so that I can see if I can play it for you guys. Sorry, no, you can keep talking. Sorry.
Well,
that was the only idea I had.
We all know what happens if androids and like soulless creatures become superheroes. They always end up destroying everything. So I don't know. In the end, there would be a love doll apocalypse.
Maybe. There should always be a threat of that. Should always be a threat.
What about the video?
I'm not gonna show this because.
Have you guys ever seen Mystery Men?
Yeah, but I don't remember.
That is like the greatest movie of all time. Like every time I see a Marvel movie, I'm like, yeah, but this isn't Mystery Men. Like, this would be so much better as Mystery Men. Like I think Guardians of the Galaxy was the only one that I really liked. The other ones were they just feel too vanilla.
Guardians of the Galaxy was good.
I liked it a lot. The first one, the second one sucked.
I like the second one, but I mean the first one was better. I will definitely grant people. I thought the second one though, like there was a fair amount of downtime in the second one, but I thought that the whole final battle and everything was pretty amazing.
Nah, I didn't like it. But I liked Venom, even though it was nothing impressive. It was like a cheesy 80s action movie, but I just love Tom Hardy, and I really enjoyed the movie for being so not superhero.
I need to see it. It's one I wanted to see it in the theater, and I swore that I would. I vowed to myself that I would, and then I never did.
I guess nobody has watched Spider-Man Far From Home yet.
It
No.
was good. I also heard Toy Story 4 was good. But I'm too crushed after watching Toy Story 3. That movie was way too dark. I'm like, don't trust it.
I am not sure what else I need to see. God, I used to be like an indie film almanac because I like worked at a theater, and even before that I was really into, but I don't know if there are like good indie films that come out anymore. I don't know if it's a thing.
absolutely are, but I think some of them end up on streaming services, and
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
which ones to look out for. I'm definitely want to watch the movie Midsummer, which is the new movie by the director who did Hereditary, so horror movie. And I really liked Hereditary, and I'm absolutely looking forward to Midsummer. It's like an art house horror movie.
Oh, that sounds good. Horror movies are. I haven't seen a good horror movie in a long time. But horror movies are great because even if they're bad, they're okay.
I want to write and direct a horror movie. Horror movies were the first movies I really, really, really watched a whole lot of as a kid, and it did mess me up. It was kind of a stupid idea, and it was not a good idea because I was kind of a messed up little kid anyway. So I like but I'm pretty sure I could do a really good one because I know what works in terms of like, you know, what's actually really scary and scoring and everything, because I've done scoring and scoring is like the most important part. You know, cinematography and scoring is really what makes the horror movie good.
Absolutely.
Have you guys seen Terrifier? You have to watch Terrifier. Terrifier is like, it's probably my favorite movie now. It's about
how old is it?
A mime clown.
How old is it?
The new one came out in 2016, so it's fairly new, but it's an indie film. It's very, very stylized. It's so good. I made a video analyzing it.
Scary.
Huh?
I just looked it up. It looks scary.
Yeah, it is pretty scary, but it's also kind of funny. It's like both at the same time, and I love the theme because it has like a big blaring like horn kind of sound, like, you know, like how they have Hong Kong horns. Like my favorite scene is when he's chasing a woman, and like she ducks between two doors, and then he reaches his arm out to grab her, and then like starts honking a horn at her through the thing. Every time I think about it, I just can't stop laughing. But yeah, it's really gruesome. It's got some really shocking scenes in there too. So they're supposed to be making new movies with him.
Yeah, I just put it on my basket on Amazon.
If you have Netflix, it's available for free on Netflix if you have that.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Also, there might still be a YouTube link. You might still be able to watch it on YouTube. For a while, that was a thing.
Uh-huh.
And like potato quality, but you know, you get what you pay for.
Oh, you know, the movie that I really, really liked over the past few years, one of them, and this is a more of a serious movie, like that, you know, just great film, is Dunkirk.
Ooh, no.
Did you see it?
No, but it was directed by, what's his name?
The guy who did Memento and
Exactly. And the only movie that I appreciate of him is Memento and the Dark Knight trilogy. Everything else I absolutely hate.
He did the Dark Knight trilogy? I hated that.
No, I liked it. I didn't love it, but I liked it. But I think he's a pretentious prick. Like all his movies, they are beautifully shot, but the storytelling is intentionally overcomplicated just to come across as sophisticated, and I hate that.
Well, it works with Dunkirk because like in the other ones I can see why you would say that. Like it definitely did seem like that in the Memento and the Dark Knight thing.
Yeah.
But and with Dunkirk, it actually really makes sense for being, you know, like one of the craziest battles in World War II. Nobody really knows what's going on. They're trying to communicate with each other from across the channel and things like that. And so it worked for that. And he actually didn't try to make it any more complicated than it was. It was just pretty accurate to like how complicated it would be, it feels like.
Yeah.
So I would recommend giving it a try because it was one of the best movies I've seen ever, really. It was really good.
Okay.
Have you guys ever seen Slacker?
Yeah.
No.
Richard Linklater.
Yeah, that movie's awesome. That's all.
He also did Before Sunrise and he did Waking Life.
Oh, he did
doesn't
Waking
ring a bell.
Life.
What?
I didn't know he did Waking Life also.
Yeah.
So I have to go to bed because
Yeah, I was just saying, I was like, okay,
it's 3 o'clock in the morning, and yeah.
okay. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much.
It was a fun hangout. I apologize for being in such a like groggy mood and having to like leave and go grab stuff and go to the bathroom numerous times and crap like that. But you know what you're gonna do. Sometimes it's just I didn't even like get drunk. Like I feel like I'm hungover from being drunk, but it like it was literally just the nasty like beefy cheese mac thing that I had last night. That was like maybe it had fermented. I'm not sure. All right, I'm gonna end it right here. Talk to you guys. Oh, and if you quickly want to donate to me, send me a PayPal because I'd very much appreciate that. And I am going to the ICMI. So
Also, each Wednesday leading up to the ICMI, we're having live streams on my channel where I read from Women Respond to the Men's Movement and we make fun of it. It was published in 1992. It's a very fascinating read, but also a little bit infuriating.
Oh, that's brilliant. That sounds wonderful. I'm
trying to finish the book by the time.
What's your channel?
Space Pan.
On
the two
YouTube.
words put together. Yeah, if you want to hop on, I'd be more than happy to have you. The next one we have is, let me see, it'll be called So She Walked Over and Kissed Him, Robert Bly's Men's Movement by Margaret Randall. So I'm sure this will be very
Just a second,
empowering.
is it Space Pan, Pan?
Yeah, as one word.
it's so infuriating the way feminists will try to attribute the men's movement or you know to like one guy. They'll be like, oh, you mean Paul Elam's thing, or I've heard people numerous times say like, oh, you mean the whole Elliot Rodger thing, and it's like, no, you don't. They would never do that with like a specific woman. Like, what would they be like? Oh, you mean the whole Susan B. Anthony thing? Like,
yeah. Well, they do it whenever they want to dismiss someone, right? Like what they'll do is when they're nay faulting, they'll call the other feminists, the bad feminists, they'll call them the dwarf side, right?
The what side?
Yeah.
Like Dorkin?
Yeah. So if they're trying to say not all feminists are like that, they're big. Oh no, that's not all feminists are like that. Nay fault. That you're talking about the dwarf side. You're talking Andrea Dworkin. Which, by the way, after I finish this book, the next thing we have to read is John Stoltenberg's On Refusing to Be a Man. John Stoltenberg is a gay man that was married to Andrea Dworkin.
Oh my god!
Like, so we're gonna see what kinds of advice he has for men.
Issues.
Yes.
Oh my god! That's.
As one of you, what's her name? There was this anti-feminist. She must have been really active, I think, in the 80s, and she wrote this book against feminism and against women. I don't remember her name. I think she was actually German, and
Oh, you're thinking of Esther Wheeler.
Exactly. Oh my god!
Yeah, you have to watch Esther Wheeler and Alice Schwarzer's debate. It's one of my favorite videos ever.
It is so dark. I mean, like, oh my god, how could
you post it in the side chat?
They're saying that she's the most misogynistic person, and it's brilliant. It's so. She calls everything.
Alice Schwarzer is accusing her of not having written her book. Like, there's no way you wrote this. Your husband just wrote this. And after they're like, you think I'm the misogynist? Like, screw you, you fucking bitch.
Spacepen, could you post the link to that in the chat or something so people can?
Yeah, here I'll put the watch V equals thing because we're all YouTube people. We know how to use that, right? Because I think if I post the whole link, it won't work. Or will it? I don't know. Whatever. I'm just gonna post.
You can post it in the side chat, and I can post it because I can post things. on my own channel.
Okay, here I'll get the whole link.
I think I can.
I think I can. I think I can.
You do get special privileges on your own channel.
Yeah, it's a good debate.
God, I'm really self-conscious that I did briefly make a George Takei video, and I was just like, oh, come on. They're going to accuse everybody. And then people were like, no, Princess too. And I was like, delete. And forgot. But, like, I have no evidence of it. I definitely deleted it if I did. But it's just so funny the way that, you know, the turfs, it's like that. If I did do that, that was like 2 years ago. For a day.
Who fucking cares?
And
Who fucking cares?
supposedly she remembers. Supposedly it was the turning point of her, like, and it's like, okay, you're just making crap up. You never watched me. She said unsubbed, and it's like, you're what? Like that's not you're.
I binged through all of your videos to get back to these ones, and I finally found my reason to unsub.
You know, seriously, if I did make a video that was like that, it probably was like, I don't know, really quickly written, you know, and just or even improv'd and short, and then I realized it was stupid because I was just sort of speaking out of my ass, and then I like immediately deleted it. That's what I would have done.
To be honest, even if you did say something like this whole mentality of holding people accountable for things they said 20 years ago or 3 years ago, I mean, you can mention it, but you can ask, oh, by the way, there was a video where you said such and such. What is your opinion about that now? I think that's okay to do. That's fair criticism. But hating people based on something they said at one point in the past, when these people were actually different people with different information, when the whole world was a different place, that just sucks. Just ignore it.
Yeah. And she's lying. Like, she already hated me. She's just coming up with an excuse to attack me or whatever. Like, she's a turf. She's she lied.
Who needs a reason to hate you?
I mean, it's they're trying to get under my skin, but I'm just trying to remember if there's any truth to it, you know. And I think that I think that if I did say anything, it probably would have been like, so supposedly George Takei like groped, because she said something like, you were saying that he could have never possibly did it because he's one of your brethren as a gay man, which is like, okay, that's just stupid. I would have never said that. Like, that's some crap that you made up, or deliberately twisted my words to try to like put words into my mouth. And I'm thinking that there is a possibility that I would have said, and it probably was what I said before, is like, so supposedly this model said that he woke up and Takei had unzipped his pants and was like touching his junk, and I might have said, okay, that is so common in the gay community, and I'm not saying it's good. I've never done that. I wouldn't appreciate it if someone did that to me, but I don't know if I would bring that up 30 years from now. Just saying.
I completely agree. I think like every time I hear certain allegations like against so what's his name, House of Cards,
Kevin Spacey
and stuff like, I'm like, yeah, so it's like, it's so common in the gay scene. And again, I agree.
There are some pretty bad.
It's not okay. It's not okay. But it's so normal.
With him, the one with Anthony Rapp wasn't really that bad, but then some other worse ones came out. So I do want to make that distinction, and I think it might have been the same for Takei. Like, that one guy was the first guy who came out, and then there was others. But you know, at the same time, it could be a Kavanaugh situation. You know, it could be like there's some other people like talking about gang rape punch or something. You know, like so.
But the thing is, instead of just calling out these people that did something wrong, I think, what about calling out the whole gay community and society for actually never owning their own shit and calling out problems with like drug abuse and promiscuity, and that like really like problematic sexual behavior is absolutely sanctified in the gay community. Nobody calls them out for it.
Yeah, what really bothers me is the notion that gay bars have died and they have been replaced by hookup apps and I guess bathhouses, and with rampant drug use and sex addiction, because it ends up leading to sex addiction. It doesn't end up leading to relationships, and that really actually bothers me, and it's very destructive. But nobody ever really, like, people bring it up, but nobody ever comes up with, they don't even speculate about any solutions. Like, they never actually think like, oh, maybe there's a reason why gay guys aren't going to gay bars. And I think that the reason why, well, I know what I think is the reason why, is because feminists took them over. You know, like feminists, the intersectionals came in and they said, no, this is for queer women too. And, you know, which means that they're in charge. When they say, oh, it's for us too, it means you're second class citizens. And I think that a lot of gay guys intuitively know that, like, they know that that's the case, and that that most gay men don't like having to go out and self-censor and then, you know, behave in the fashion that feminists would prefer them to. You know, like, gay guys like to kind of grope each other at gay bars to a certain degree. Things like
True,
that.
but I think that the reason why gay people have a hard time finding relationships, and the reason why gay people spread so many STDs and why they have problems with drugs is definitely not because of intersectional feminists. It's because they don't hold themselves accountable, and there's a bit of, well, we're perverts anyways, so we might as well, like, ignore all rules and all moral standards. I think that there might be a point to be made that maybe the gay community could do with a little bit more moral accountability. I know that sounds incredibly boring.
No, I agree with you though.
But the thing is, like, making out, and I love saunas and stuff like that, but it doesn't make you happy. It satisfies you, and it's an adventure. But you go home alone, and you're gonna end up alone and die alone. And maybe the gay community should focus on something more.
Okay. So here's the thing: it's not just the bars. The bars have been taken over, and that used to be like sort of the place that gay guys, you know, always had bars that they could go to, which would be almost entirely gay male. And now, you know, like 25% of the people there will be transgender women, you know.
Okay.
That's one thing. But the other thing is that they took over all of the nonprofits, the activist type thing, the things that are supposed to be community building things during the day and everything are entirely taken over by the intersectionals. And so there really isn't anything for gay men to form like healthier community.
See, I think that's a good thing. I noticed when I was back in Germany in March, and I sometimes when I'm over in Germany, I still offer erotic massages to my old clients. And I have to say that almost all of my clients were in relationships. They didn't go out anymore, and they had a very heteronormative lifestyle. And you can argue, oh, why do gay couples have to have a heteronormative lifestyle? But they were doing great. They didn't take drugs, they didn't drink too much, they didn't have unhealthy behaviors and stuff like that. And I think destruction of gay communies might lead to two extremes.
But how old were these people?
From, I would say, 30 up.
Okay.
From 30.
Well, there's,
and I would just a second.
Sorry. Yeah.
I think the destruction of the gay community leads to two extremes. It's people that live a normal life and are looking for a partner and settle down and get married and stuff like that. And then the other extreme of hookup apps and like insatiable life sex and stuff like that, and drugs.
Yeah. Well, I would say that, as guys get older and they shack up, I think it is healthy to calm down and to focus on your work and to come up with some non-gay activities. But, that whole period when you're in your 20s, I think it's really important to have an actual community, people that are like you, people like you can totally be yourself around. I know that was really important to me, and I'm glad that I had that. So, yeah.
But wouldn't it be okay? I never fitted into the gay community that well, but I enjoyed being surrounded by a mix of people: straight people, bisexual people, gay people. I was more in the gothic scene, and in the gothic scene, it's quite mixed. And I never had a gay circle of friends. I had 1 or 2 gay friends, but that was enough for me. I didn't need the community. And I think the fact why I never took drugs, why I didn't catch HIV and stuff like that, maybe it's in parts because I had a very mixed community, not a gay community.
Well, yeah, sometimes I there was this, but maybe this, I always think back at like, what was the most fun that I ever really had, and what was the idea social scene, and it was mostly okay. It was mixed. It was when I was a New York hipster from 2003 through 2005, and there was kind of this like Williamsburg, Brooklyn crew of guys that all kind of knew each other because it wasn't a very big neighborhood that we lived in. Chadwick, that's where Chadwick lives, actually.
Yeah.
That's initially where we met in probably like 2007 or so when I was visiting. And there was like a bar that we'd all go to called the Metropolitan. And then there was a lot of parties that we knew about together. And there was guys that didn't necessarily live in the same neighborhood, but we all knew, like guys that would live in the Lower East Side. And there was definitely straight people that were involved in the scene. Straight people would come to the gay bar. It was, if they were cool enough to like want to go, they were usually very cool people. And so it wasn't an issue. But it was really nice having the more like gay crew of people that was very much mostly, like 85% gay, lesbian type people. But then we would also on weekends.
Were there drugs involved?
Not really, no. We did we did drink a lot though.
Okay.
But for the most part, no, we were all like, everybody was really smart and very artistic and talented. And, cool. I think it was young. I think it was like kind of a glory couple of years. Like the early 2000s in Williamsburg, Brooklyn were really cool because that's when people were, the type of people who would normally live on Manhattan, which is in New York, is the island that has all the skyscrapers. Brooklyn is more suburban-ish. And when Manhattan type people started moving to Brooklyn, that was right around then, like just a few years ago, had they been doing that. And so it was a lot cheaper, and a lot of like art school kids moved over there because it was cheaper to live there. And it eventually, the prices went up a lot. But there was this really cool little period. But maybe that's just one of those really rare things that happened where, people from all over the country and really all over the world ended up moving to that neighborhood, and all of them were cool.
I can't hear you anymore.
It ended up being just this kind of little utopia for a moment. But maybe that's like just me getting really, really lucky, and I shouldn't like hope for that again. You know what I mean?
I had the same thing, and I hear from other people that had similar experiences. I think it has to do with a certain time in each person's life where you make a lot of friends and where you make very strong experiences. And I think that different people have a very similar attachment to these memories, even though these memories can be vastly different from person to person.
Yeah.
So, sure, and I'm sure that young people nowadays and young gay people nowadays have the same experiences, just in a different version. And I think, like, I'm not a huge fan of this whole intersectionality bullshit and stuff like that, but I do think that young people now are so, let's say, confused and open that it really doesn't matter a lot if you're straight or gay or bi or whatever. And I hope and I think that they the groups are quite mixed, and I hope that the people can be whoever they want to be for a while till they actually find who they really are later on. So I think they're gonna have a good time, hopefully. Unfortunately, there's also this whole political correctness and oppression.
Yeah, this obsession with that stuff. Identity
Yeah,
politics.
so that doesn't sound like fun. But besides that, I hope they're doing okay.
Well, okay, so yeah, I do say that I would say that people probably do have that great period in their life. Like everybody has that period that they remember as the happiest. What I also will say though is that little particular few years, that was when social media first started, and what was weird about it with social media when it first began, it was like mainly just hipsters in big cities. Like we were on the first site, which was called Friendster.
Yeah.
And it was hipsters that were very like savvy and pretty smart people. And we like I thought everybody who was there then remembers that as like the coolest period. Like it was like, no, that was actually really cool. Like everybody that we hung out with was cool. We all knew about these parties because there was only there was this network of only about 500 people that all knew each other, like 500 to a few thousand that were like the cooler people in New York. And it was easy to find out about the parties that were everywhere. And some of them we would go and there'd be only 25% gay, lesbian, or bi or whatever,
Yeah.
But it was always open to everybody, and everybody really remembered that period as this great little magical few years. But like I said, I think it was sort of an oasis that just happened to happen for a little while, and then everything kind of changed due to various circumstances. But I mean, I would really wish that I don't know what would be necessary to replicate such an environment again. And maybe it wouldn't be impossible. I think that maybe it wouldn't be possible. I think that one of the things was we were all like, most of us were very young, and many of us weren't really working a whole lot. And then everybody starts working all the time, because we had like just graduated college, really like figuring out, like what exactly you're going to do. And, we all lived in New York City going to college. So it's not like our parents didn't have money. And we had a little bit of breathing room in that way.
But you shouldn't, you can't replicate it, and you shouldn't try to replicate it. The thing is, the reason why, for example, the Summer of Love in the 70s and stuff like that, the reason why that was so amazing for the people that were there was because it was unique. It was a moment in time, and you had this moment in time, and in 60 years times you can still talk to people and say, you know what, when I was young there was this moment in time and I was there, I was part of it. If you could just replicate it, if it would happen all the time, it wouldn't be even worth mentioning. So don't try to replicate it. Be glad that you were there, and other people will have their moment, and they will feel the same way about it or similar. And I can now.
Yeah. You said you have to go?
Yes.
Okay, let's take off for real this time. Well, thanks for coming on. And thank Ashley, thank everybody for showing up. And I'm gonna press
Thank you for having me.
And try to show up to the ICMI because I believe all three of us will be there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll I guess reserve a spot for you then.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm very much looking forward to that. Thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.